Rewinding to day 1, they're heading for the green barrier, while Tenma quietly realizes he never once questioned this obsession. Then Izumi coolly prods Iberia about his obvious Tenma worship, and Iberia, bless him, can only stumble through confused panic, because apparently plenty of legends existed, but that still wasn't enough. Not even Aiden, Dawa Jin, or Izumi Nento could replace Tenma, which is embarrassing for everyone else. Frankly, since Izumi outranks them all, so he finally asks why Tenma specifically gets the pedestal treatment, and Iberia starts searching for a decent answer, already rattled, before brushing it off like this whole disaster is somehow normal. 10 years ago, little Iberia brandished a sword, already auditioning for legend. His mother teased his birthday gift, and the kid practically glowed with approval. Then he declared a heroic title, because subtlety clearly never touched him. He hyped himself up as an awoken calamity slayer, grinning like reality owed him applause. The whole courtyard watched this tiny menace march off like a future celebrity. Even his mother tried warning him, while his old ally kept the peace. Soon the crowd gathered around him, treating his pose like a priceless performance. Naturally, the surrounding boys turned into smug little goblins, whispering and laughing. Then one fearless brat reached out for the sword, chasing the absurd nickname. Iberia just froze, realizing his grand reveal had become everyone's entertainment. The kid leans on his famous crafter dad's reputation, all smug and naive, then grabs his own shiny prize, refusing to hand it back, but the other boy corners him fast, and that confidence shrinks instantly, so he caves with a shaky smile, already regretting his dramatic little hero moment. As the courtyard erupts, a panic call tags him as calamity bait, while the crowd below turns into snickering vultures, practically starving for drama, and there's his mother, frozen in the distance, watching the chaos unfold. Until the blonde woman greets him like this was a harmless little outing, he laughs it off, pretending that embarrassment was somehow thrilling, and then her expression cracks, because even she can tell this kid is special. A grizzled elder hunts a missing wooden sword, blaming those brat thieves again, while the blonde mother storms in, ready to reclaim it and the dignity attached, except the old fighter swats back with brutal confidence, calling her boy hopeless, and that smug trash talk lands like a hammer, because she cannot even ask for help. Then the scene cuts to the kid's absurdly weak reputation, the so-called disappointment, until he's suddenly staring at his hospitalized mother, realizing why admiration hurts. Months later, a doctor's grim verdict hangs over the hallway like a death sentence, and even desperate shouting can't change the fact her body is failing fast. Iberia, now a complete emotional wreck, begs Tenma to stay beside her, because his mother is fading too, and that little boy is already terrified. A bedside confession lands softly, turning weakness into the family's cruelest truth, because powerless kindness can't protect anyone, and that's the part nobody likes admitting. Then the promise comes trembling through clasped hands, with bravery framed like a desperate inheritance, while the mother's touch on her boy feels gentler than the terminal news waiting outside. And suddenly the same child who looked ordinary is begging to become a hero, not for glory, obviously, but so his dying mother can believe him once more. Later, the hospital hush gives way to that tragic little question of why him, because meeting Tenma exposed a strength that even monsters and commanders now fear, and the blonde loudmouth who wanted a temporary alliance finally learns who he's standing beside, with awakeners and calamity beasts alike looking doomed the moment Tenma decides to keep going. Stern as ever, Tenma drags Iberia through the chaos, quietly saving face, while the green barrier roars overhead and the blonde coward spills his heart, admitting Tenma's kindness is exactly why he wants to become stronger, because the guy who idolizes him now calls him brave, then painfully honest, and that's somehow enough to make a hopeless dream sound almost possible, until the disaster beast crashes in, answering the sentiment with pure violence, only for Tenma's feral calm to turn the monster's confidence into pulp, and the beast's jawline of doom suddenly looks a lot less impressive, as prophecy time ticks forward, and Tenma stands shirtless, absurdly unbothered, while Iberia panics over the forbidden dragon gear, realizing this nightmare keeps upgrading. The Inferno beast comes roaring back, all teeth and smoke, still acting unstoppable, but Iberia's stare says this whole situation is getting weirdly personal, because that monster's face suddenly looks different, like it already lost twice, while Tenma keeps it together, even as the battlefield keeps chewing itself apart. Then he snaps back into focus, demanding Aiden while everyone else panics harder, and the beast answers by lunging again, confident in the usual brute force nonsense, only for Tenma to stand there, shirtless and unbothered, eating that pressure like breakfast, before he grabs the attack, twists the nightmare back at its owner, and shouts Iberia awake, as if this disaster still needed more motivation. Then the monster crashes down, because apparently arrogance was the weakest stat here. The beast's shattered maw fills the sky, already looking twice beaten. Then its claw surges forward. As Windblade kicks into gear, the strike gets swallowed by a swirling barrier, pure humiliation in motion. Tenma's eyes lock in, and mana detection starts exposing everything. He reads the monster clean through, then launches a brutal counter. Even while shirtless and wrecking faces, he keeps mocking Iberia's panic. The chaos stretches wider, while Thunderbreaker tears through the battlefield. One crushing blow lands, and the beast finally starts folding. Its desperate roar sounds pathetic now, like arrogance with no backup. So the verdict drops cold. That mana belongs to Iberia, not this wreck. Tenma's stunned glare says the dragon gear just triggered something ugly. The giant begs him to end it. And wow, that's desperate now, because his bare chest keeps tanking the monsters, flailing like it's trash. Then the counterstrike snaps through armor, sending the beast into panic. And even the commander sees this kid driving the fight beyond reason. As the monster crashes down, the whole field shakes from his brutality. Izumi's warning lands hard, because Iberia's control is collapsing fast, while the red-armored tactician calls the speed absurd, and pretty rightly, since Tenma's power has been swallowed by Dragon Gear's runaway side effect, leaving everyone racing to shut it off before he becomes the disaster. Izumi already knows this help, and it means Tenma's becoming the last answer, because Iberia's body is fully fused now, which is just fantastic, honestly. The old rulebook says Dragon Gear has stolen awakened bodies before, and it never returns them, so the commander cuts straight to the ugly part, ordering Iberia erased before the gear finishes him. Yet Tenma's glare says he's not buying the panic, since only he can carry this disaster, and Izumi, seeing that monstrous confidence, admits the speed is absurd, almost offensively so. While the blade drops toward the decision point, Tenma refuses the burden being shoved aside, because he's the one taking it, and the others can stop pretending they can. Even the missing Aiden becomes the next excuse, as Tenma promises to save him too. Then Deathhound gets summoned, and this little catastrophe officially stops being subtle. The forest turns murderous as Deathhound crashes down, ripping open the battlefield, while the Inferno Giant answers with raw brutality. Yet Tenma keeps grinning. Then a wind blade tears through, and Iberia realizes he's hopelessly behind, because the monster just keeps coming. But Tenma's body is already rewriting limits, so he triggers 1,000 wind blades, turning panic into a very expensive funeral. And the giant's next problem is a shirtless Tenma standing there like a menace, soaked in blood and fury. He surges forward, looking far less human now, while the demon beast gets shredded into regret, screeching like it deserved better. Elsewhere, the masked handler reports Aiden secured, like that somehow fixes everything. But the purple god figure calmly notes countless monsters exist, and captures matter most. Sarushokuma is crushing the front line, while the special class heroes stall. Yet the masked red-eyed monster already knows he's only facing one, because another human might actually hold him back, and that is apparently Hitan Akira, strongest body and all. As if arrogance needed backup, then Tenma keeps carving through the nightmare, bleeding like a broken banner, but still refusing to die, which is rude to every monster present, and even the spectators can't believe this battle's still going. Honestly, because Sarushokuma, one of the 8 demon kings, is getting checked, while the blue-haired observer panics over blows that could shatter Earth, and the calm voice insists Tenma won't fall, so panic gets outlived. The canyon trembles under pressure, and even his allies mutter in disbelief, because special-class monsters are supposedly human ceiling, so naturally they're wrong. Again, Sarushokuma keeps rewriting that ceiling, while commanders warn nobody should underestimate him. The beast crashes harder, and the battlefield answers with a crater-sized insult. Iberia stares at Hitan's second form, horrified he's seen this madness before, because that transformation spikes every stat, then turns the user feral and cruel. Tenma copies the nightmare anyway, dragging his broken body into a red eruption. The black wolf monster gets buried beneath that explosive, overcompensating comeback, and now everyone wants the nickname for this form, as if labels fix trauma. But the real answer is simple: he's just become a walking disaster. Sarushikuma's jaw splits the frame, turning arrogance into a bright, violent crater, and the Demon King keeps drilling downward like the world owes him an apology. Tenma answers with a feral rupture, dragging the whole battlefield into chaos, while the blue-haired witness panics over his destination, already calling the next disaster. She even admits this monster still keeps his reason, annoyingly, like a proper menace. And the masked commander warns that any higher power would only become catastrophe. Then Tenma keeps moving through rubble and pressure, burning into true special class territory. The crowd watches one brutal impact after another, because apparently subtlety died here, and even the red-eyed beast starts looking like prey, which is deeply embarrassing. So yeah, the answer arrives loud and ugly. He's become the disaster everyone feared. Tenma lies wrecked in blood and smoke, hearing the enemy report collapse, while the same unstoppable nuisance keeps looming overhead, still impossible to ignore, and the whole sky twists red like the barrier itself is choking, as the blue-haired witness swallows her nerves and clings to hope. Then the masked commander needles her for risking everything on Tenma, and she answers with that painfully honest panic, proving he's changed her too, because now even his condition sounds terrifyingly familiar, which is embarrassing for everyone. While she checks the forest battlefield and admits the others are still holding, yet the blonde kid below is screaming through pain instead of dodging, refusing retreat. So Tenma answers the pressure head-on, turning damage into his very own weapon. Tenma stands bloodied and half-feral, finally outgrowing pain itself. Then he grabs the monster's throat and forces the forest to remember him, because now he's openly unleashing Katsushinkyu, and that's bad news for everything, as the red-armored beast gets pinned inside a collapsing ring of purple ruin, while every hit keeps drilling deeper, like Tenma decided attrition was a joke, and even the monster's proud body starts folding under that merciless pressure, sending the surrounding battlefield into panic, with allies and bystanders watching helplessly, while Iberia chokes out apology after apology, still thinking he's the burden, but Tenma shuts that down instantly, basically telling him he was never the problem, and that might be the most devastating part of this whole nightmare. Her tears spill out as she clings to Tenma, begging for impossible mercy, because that disaster beast won't kill her father, just steer him like livestock, and she pins her last hope on Tenma, the one miracle still standing, while the masked horror looms overhead, basically announcing this tragedy was appetizers. Then Tenma answers by turning feral, vowing to smash the threat himself, and the crying blonde finally watches someone strong enough to carry her grief, as Iberia stays locked to his side, trusting the kid nobody else predicted, while the prophet's warning hangs in the air, dead serious and deeply inconvenient, because that Demon King's smug promise says the real carnage is still coming, and with that, the battlefield learns Tenma's nightmare is only getting started. High above the mountain dark, the escort team finally spots a human figure, and Tenma's hope turns grim, because even after the beast fell, the real mess kept spreading. That victory looks pathetic now, with Heaton barely standing after the fight, honestly embarrassing. Yet Choha catches a strange emotional wave, and Azuma's armored presence makes the warning feel worse. The source is ahead, where a battered body and the mysterious girl are pinned in nightmare silence. Then the blue-haired commander lunges in, shocked by a humanoid disaster beast, as if that helps, and Choha freezes on the sight of Tenma's ruined back, because that is definitely not reassuring. Tenma lands beside her anyway, and even the panic-ridden call of his name cannot shake him. Bloodied and hollow-eyed, he locks onto her with terrifying calm, making grief look optional, while Choha finally realizes the injuries and wonders what on earth happened here. Tenma stands between nightmare jaws, promising answers while the beast lurks, hungry, and Choha spots danger nearby as Azuma's armored glare makes everything worse, because the so-called savior is Jusuke Bokudo, Aiden's guard, not some random extra, while the battlefield trio learns the truth. A disaster beast, a commander, and an impossible brat, and Izumi finally admits defeat, which is rare enough to deserve applause, since prophecy already stamped this mess as day 2, 3:34 a.m., after disaster struck, with Aiden taken, Iberia dead, and the whole district collateral in one legendary failure. Yet the trackers only found clones, because the real beast played hide and ruin like a professional, and even Izumi calls it cunning, meaning the monster outsmarted the entire cleanup crew, before the scene cuts to concern for Tenma, because of course he is the next problem. Choha's reading of the aftermath sounds almost relieved, yet stubbornly incomplete, because Tenma's anger keeps burning hotter, and that is never a good sign. Overhead, the room feels cursed, with hatred already circling his chest like a debt, while a faded family photo reminds everyone exactly what kind of pain drives him. Iberia even dares to introduce himself, as if confidence can survive this circus, but Tenma stands there shredded and bloodied, wearing menace like a second skin. Then his loyalty snaps into place, and he swears he is not leaving Itsuka's side, as the talk turns to Shikigami naming, because apparently even Chaos needs a branding expert, and Tenma's battered stare says the poor monster picked the wrong boy to corner, before the Black Wolf lunges in, only for him to answer with pure death. Deathhound's numbers flash up, and that dog already looks offensively overqualified. Tenma calmly vows to catch the disaster beast, like pain is optional. The wolf keeps looming behind him, but he walks off anyway, shamelessly fearless. Even Izumi's armored silence feels tiny beside that cursed, blood-soaked doorway. Choha and the crowd panic over the sudden shift, while Tenma refuses retreat. Izumi studies the field, and everyone else just pretends this isn't insane. Then the gossip starts, praising the injured brat for ridiculous, impossible feats. They even blame him for killing his friend, because apparently Nuance died too. Tenma snaps at the gate, demanding the beast's location and Aiden's rescue. When told no, his eyes burn harder, and the whole room braces. The rescue gate slams shut on Tenma, branding him unready and dangerous. Even the savior hierarchy sneers, because apparently courage needs paperwork now. Tenma refuses that joke, insisting he still owes Aiden everything. And Choha bristles at the insult, while Izumi's silence cuts colder than steel. Then the warning lands hard, with Aiden's survival suddenly turned into leverage. Tenma's stare empties out, because guilt always hits harder than bruises. The commander explains the disaster beast trap, and calls the odds pathetic. Still, the threat buys time. Since Aiden is now too valuable to kill, Tenma answers with raw determination, his clenched fist finally looking terrifying. And just like that, potential stops being praise and becomes prophecy. The masked overseer coldly says Aiden's rescue depends on obedience, and Tenma, bruised and furious, pushes back, demanding a path to surpass special class. So the answer lands like royal law. Join Apex Camp, no bargaining. Tenma, still processing that absurd title, finally hears the tournament bargain, because only top-ranked Awakeners get invited to Nakasu's elite Apex Camp, where monsters like Teiwajin and Hiten Akira supposedly survived brutal training and became human weapons, and the deal gets even greedier, promising rank boosts in the main tournament too, plus a shortcut to special class salvation, which is hilarious propaganda for desperate kids. Tenma snaps and accepts, promising to join despite that wrecked body, while the masked figure immediately pivots to fixing his injuries before the camp begins. A brutal green surge engulfs the room, and the healer finally gets serious, as Tenma blurts out his Apex Camp curiosity through that dead-eyed stare, while Choha panics at the timing, wondering if he is really volunteering, and she confirms the camp is for geniuses only, the kind of gatekeeping that loves humiliation. Yet Tenma keeps the pressure on, deciding that talent alone means nothing here, because genius veterans apparently break the moment the real world stops applauding them, leaving Oishi looking like every overconfident loudmouth who learned pain for free, while Choha warns Apex is less training ground, more genius graveyard, with monsters, brutal stages, and yearly deaths making the whole pitch absurdly classy, but Tenma still calls that disaster perfect, and asks to be let in. Apex's rules hit first, mocking weaklings, because mimicry dies without real danger, and Tenma doubles down, claiming awakened strength only matters against disaster beasts, while Choha stares slack-jawed, realizing this idiot is somehow serious. Then she warns is pushing a healer too far, even by genius camp standards, because this place chews up prodigies, and Tenma still wants in anyway, so the chaos cuts to his body burning, heartbeat roaring, and power finally waking, while Choha panics over that absurd surge, questioning her own sanity, but Tenma just thanks her, turns away, and leaves her mid-conversation. Then the scene darkens into a graveyard mood, with commanders looming over fresh loss, and that's the kind of welcome package Apex calls destiny. At a grave marked by dates, Tenma's farewell already feels brutally overdue, and the remorse sounds polite, because even tragedy has to wear manners, while the suited commander cuts in, promising Apex Camp and a future hunt. Then Tenma doubles down on the disaster beast obsession, making the whole vow look insane. The armor gets studied like treasure, because every veteran loves pretending details matter, until the real punch lands, his master-shaped debt, forged by survival itself. And the next glare says this guy's now determined enough to body fate, so the conversation collapses into awkward distance, with flowers left beneath the weapon, before Tenma points forward, swearing hell save Aiden and drag Jusuke along, but that stare says it best, his humanity's cracking, and he knows it. Yeah, he'll be waiting. And the whole forest gets that warning. Tenma's recovery is already ridiculous, because apparently collapse was just a warm-up. They keep shoving his anger underground, like that ever ends well. Now the commander calls a summit, admitting this attack reeks of setups, and of course he trusts Choha with Tenma, because she's the responsible one. She's flustered, yet still grinning, while Juki gets dragged into the joke. She asks where they're headed, and gets hit with pure classified smugness. Then comes the guardian routine, because Tenma suddenly needs babysitting now. But Choha plays along, poking his pride as if this were normal. Next stop is Nakasu for Apex Camp, and Tenma goes feral. The battlefield detonates in a blinding blast, and everybody feels Tenma's awakening. Then the masked menace hangs over the chaos, making the whole place feel cursed. Oishi tries to act tough, but that scream says the crowd already beat him. Izumi kneels in command mode, because someone has to clean up this mess. And the ominous red-eyed figure arrives, turning the next order into a threat. Meanwhile, Tenma's fist drives forward, rewriting the room with pure refusal. Even the smug crowd loses color, because the screaming weakling just got exposed. Back home, the mother's bed becomes the real crisis, with panic everywhere. Her worried family keeps hearing the same painful question about old wounds. Tenma answers like a man possessed, promising hell for anyone who crossed him. In the wreckage, Tenma returns like a nightmare nobody could bench, while the bandaged mother's room becomes the new battlefield of guilt, and Reiji gets hit with a warning so smug it practically bites back, because the injured girl keeps begging for vengeance, and wow, what a disaster. Then the truth spills out: Tenma's the orphan behind the chaos, not the villain. So the crowd circles his talent, his ranking, and his absurd 0 level, but Tenma answers with that feral grin, promising to crush the threat in Apex Camp, as Choha and the others arrive, staring up at the place he's aimed at, and the whole artificial stage suddenly feels too polished for its own good, because everyone's proud, everyone's nervous, and Tenma is coming anyway. The blue-haired guide shuts the gate, leaving Tenma outside, alone, then slips him a record bracelet, like survival suddenly needs paperwork, because Apex Camp waits beyond the doorway, and nobody sane strolls in casually, while Choha already knows Tenma's personality means trouble, obviously, and worse, so the black-coated applicant heads for registration, pretending this is normal, and the receptionist demands his bracelet. Like bureaucracy can tame disaster, the handoff sparks that blue glow, marking him as officially beyond average, because even the staff are level 40, and Apex Camp is monstrous, yet the screen spits out Tenma Itsuki. Level 0. Order breaker. Special grade. So Reiji sneers at the 0, mocking himself straight into embarrassment. The entrance looks polished, but the warning lands like a death sentence, because staying here costs points, and cheap bravado gets punished fast. Tenma freezes for half a beat, realizing even housing has tariffs. Then Choha gets dragged into the embarrassment. While he counts his coins, the staff calmly explains points are his actual lifeline, not a gimmick, and Tenma decides his prelim haul should cover anything this place throws. So he starts farming missions, then learns points, by survival itself. Suddenly the math clicks, and his confidence turns almost annoyingly practical. The receptionist hurries him along, because hesitation here is for corpses, and Tenma still asks for the most luxurious room, naturally. Even this camp prices breathing, and the normal room looks like a joke, because death itself shares Tenma's cramped budget, so he snubs it anyway, then picks the villa, leaving Hikaru's outrage hanging like cheap theater, while the receptionist warns points vanish fast, and Tenma just speeds the paperwork. That cocky little answer lands beautifully, since he already decided not to be broke, so she hands over the bracelet, basically his ticket into the camp's little scam, and suddenly the rules get nastier, hiding names, gifts, and levels from everyone, which only makes Hikaru obsess over Tenma's prelim points like a desperate gossip. Then the mouse click seals it, and Tenma's face turns sharply alarmed, and, because whatever he saw next, clearly screamed that this camp is insane. That point total hits like a truck, and Hikaru's smugness starts leaking fast, because Tenma's tiny little starting pool somehow should have stayed pathetic, not monstrous, while the adults around him finally understand this kid is a catastrophe in progress, and even his own reaction says the same thing. Oh no, this got expensive, since he only now remembers the villa question, after walking into the camp blind, so he resigns himself to reception again, already trapped by rules he never read. Then the mask-faced enforcer and blonde brute show up to answer nothing nicely, and Tenma, all ice-cold confidence, asks if he needs anything from them, which is adorable, because their fake help only points him toward the wrong direction, so the whole exchange collapses into Tenma asking for the villa, with everyone improvising. The moment they mention the villa, their smug confidence cracks instantly, while Tenma stays annoyingly calm, already forgetting he walked in blind, and that clueless follow-up about the exact spot only makes him look worse, because the black-haired newcomer is not wandering, he is diagnosing their scam. As the cat-eared beauty clock the con instantly and labels them parasites, then the crowd finally connects the dots and whispers about the 100,000-point monster, which makes her amused, not impressed, since this catastrophe keeps getting more interesting, and the purple-armored brute starts guessing villa life means another spoiled rich brat. Even his partner can only agree, because apparently money has replaced common sense, so Tenma's glare lands like a death sentence, and their insult ages horribly. At sunset, Tenma shuts down their greed and takes the points himself, while the smug rich boy celebrates, already imagining a free ride there, and the campus opens into that absurd villa complex, looking more like luxury propaganda, where Reiji's entourage spots the outcasts and immediately starts gossiping, but Tenma's exhausted glare kills the joke, because he still looks harmless. Then he strides past the staff, shadowing the prince with pure menace, as the crowd remembers his awkward questions and the wrong people notice. Yet Gaku's only obsession is surpassing Tenma, the kid haunting his pride, and the receptionist points out the villa like it's some priceless trophy, big enough to feed egos, but Tenma stands between monsters and delusions, so their confidence looks pathetic. On the villa gate, the guide starts shaking Tenma down for fees, and the armored brute beside him blinks, stunned that this kid pays anything, but Tenma just asks the price, cool as ever, while everyone braces, until the greedy duo demand 1,000 points. And reality embarrasses them, because Tenma agrees instantly, like pocket change, leaving them stunned. Then he casually asks how to transfer points, exposing their hustle, while the blonde pest tries calling him dumb, only to watch himself evaporate, and Tenma sweetens the humiliation, raising the bill to everything they own, before his face goes dark, confirming he already sees through the extortion, so the scam artists just freeze, realizing the monster they picked is Tenma. Under the barrier's glow, Tenma stands there like trouble, finally learned manners, while Iberia panics and demands apologies, points, and obedience, which is adorable. Then the blonde idiot throws lightning first. Certain brute confidence still counts here, but Tenma swallows that skill instantly, and the system starts mocking everyone, because one absorbed strike barely matters when his growth keeps sprinting past reason. So Iberia's smug face collapses as Tenma never even bothers to flinch, and the beast-sized punch that follows sends the lightning prodigy flying like trash. With every exchange, Tenma's body upgrades again, proving speed alone won't save him. The monster below him keeps getting crushed, while the crowd watches disbelief curdle, and now everyone understands the real nightmare wasn't the beast, it was Tenma. The order breaker finally makes sense, and Tenma's body starts rewriting itself, while the lightning clown's enhanced fists crash in, hoping brute force can still matter, but he's already too slow, because Tenma turns every swing into free humiliation. Then the beast-sized counter lands, and Oishi's confidence gets launched out the window. Even his absurd arm boost collapses on impact, proving his big talk was cosplay, and Tenma answers with a clean strike so vicious it erases the smug grin, leaving the would-be prodigy staring at a stranger, not a trainee, not competition, as Tenma's purple nightmare aura spreads, making the whole arena feel doomed. The lightning user freezes mid-panic, realizing the punch never even needed a follow-up, because one critical hit now means his head basically stops existing. Tenma's glare cuts through the chaos, and that Get Lost energy lands first, while the so-called monster throws everyone backward, exposing their panic in public. And the commentary gets worse, because his win wasn't even close to respectable. Then the camp speakers bark orders, dragging every participant toward Apex Plaza immediately, as the entrance test is announced. And yes, half of them are already doomed, but Tenma keeps walking like a disaster with legs, promising total commitment, so the elite crowd finally notices him, and suddenly they all look impressive, allegedly, until one touch on his shoulder turns the whole mood to absolute dust, because the pink-haired girl is left frozen, staring at that impossible face, and Tenma just blanks, hearing a familiar name like the universe is messing with him. The smug upperclassman laughs, until Seiya's greeting turns dangerously sharp, then her apology lands soft. But his paranoia stays embarrassingly loud. As Tenma's circle tightens, Iberia fumes about where everyone wandered off, and that nasty black-haired kid keeps looking like bad news incarnate, while the blue-eyed girl worries he's wounded, though he looks annoyingly fine. Then Iberia starts whining about injuries, and Tenma gets blamed for concern, so Seiya finally snaps, decking him with one clean, humiliating hit, while Tenma quietly vows to grow stronger, right here, with everything, and the loudmouth immediately gets shut down, because the test is starting. Then the commander's roar blanks the plaza, and everyone shuts up. The crowd freezes under Apex Camp's brutal privacy rules, and suddenly nobody's special, with Tenma, the pink-haired girl, and the smug visor kid staring each other down, while the visor kid realizes even his precious status screen has been locked away, and he keeps trying to bluff through it, only to sound more ridiculous. Then the massive blue gate ignites, announcing the entrance test like a ceremony, with the masked commander ordering everyone in one by one, no exceptions, his cold authority slicing through the plaza, while nobody dares talk back. Inside, the venue looks absurdly enormous, and the crowd starts to wobble, because Tenma's silhouette alone is enough for one guy to remember old insults. But Tenma just turns, smirking at the accusation like this is nothing. South Continent preliminaries crown Kagan Imamichi, and the smug legend enters roaring, while some idiots blame him for a house call gone violently unpaid, but Tenma just stares him down, looking annoyingly untouchable, as his defenders scramble to insist Itsuki isn't some extortionist thug, and the blonde loudmouth even dares brag about educating Tenma's underlings, only for Tenma to answer with a savage blitz that drops him mid-flex. Then he leans in, ice cold, making mockery sound almost professional, before the guy behind him panics, grabbing a student like cheap leverage. But Tenma stays unimpressed, promising zero explanations and zero mercy, because the next second, those red eyes mean somebody's about to regret breathing. Tenma's blitz folds the loudmouth fast, leaving the room embarrassingly stunned, while Kagan's camp tries to stage manage the fallout, but nobody buys it. Then the white-haired rival calmly suggests a brutal training ground after the test, and Tenma answers by making the dark stage glow, annoying everyone with composure, because the examiner starts laying out the entrance test like it's sacred law, except the catch lands hard. This test has no rules, just chaos, and the spectators instantly panic, acting like freedom is some shocking conspiracy, as the 4 rooms are revealed, each one promising a different stat grind, with scoring tiers turning the whole thing into a ruthless numbers auction. And Tenma, of course, treats the equipment loophole like a personal invitation. The pink-haired rookie frets about missing gear, and the smug veteran scoffs. Then Tenma drifts into the defense chamber. While she asks his test order, he shrugs like everything's already solved, choosing the nearest trial and all the rest, as the examiner grins through his goggles, calling that confidence downright perfect. And the metal room opens into defense, where Kagan brags about his element, but Tenma ignores the flex, walking under the lights while the examiner points him out, because the stranger in armor only needs one look to seem strong. Apparently, before the real circus begins, with rocks, difficulty tiers, and a glorified beatdown menu, so Tenma gets the command to block them, with the pink-haired girl watching hard, and the bald examiner finally calls trainees forward, starting the chaos with names. Kinoshita opens the room's circus, letting first pick sound dangerously generous. Then the examiner greenlights preparation, while Tenma's blank stare says he already knows the joke, and the red-haired show-off flexes metallization, because apparently defense is a personality now, but Tenma answers with filthy confidence, turning the whole challenge into his warm-up, as the examiner drops difficulty 1, trying to make rocks feel like a serious threat, except Tenma hurls pressure back instantly, and the room gets embarrassed on his behalf, while the smug bruiser pretends it barely stings, which is adorable in the worst way. Then Tenma skips straight to level 2, basically insulting the entire first round, so the examiner unleashes a massive vortex, hoping spectacle can hide the panic. But Tenma keeps standing there like a disaster, ready to smash that too. Above the ruined stage, the pink-haired witness braces, as Tenma hangs there, and the smug examiner answers with a thumbs up, acting brave for once. Then the system demands magic detection, because apparently the rocks need paperwork. Tenma reads the trick instantly, noting those rocks are examiner-made damage, while the metallized nuisance starts rattling, suddenly less cocky than before, and even he admits the pressure hurts, which is honestly hilarious. Yet the governor's son doubles down, asking for difficulty 3 like a clown, so the examiner tosses a bigger test, 1 level higher and uglier. Then a golden shield spins up in his palm, swallowing the attack cleanly, and Tenma just squares up, refusing to flinch at the upgrade. The stage detonates as Tenma's blow hammers through difficulty 3's fake defense, and the smug glasses guy gets folded so hard even his arrogance rattles, while the pink-haired girl and silent companion stare, realizing this kid's a disaster, because the supposed test subject is still upright, bloodied, and embarrassingly impossible. Then the worried girl calls for Rebo, rushing in as Tenma steadies himself, and the examiner flatly admits the hit was monstrous, which is almost polite, before mocking difficulty 3 as absurdly stronger, like the test wants revenge. Yet Tenma keeps standing, earning a score that makes the room swallow its pride, as the commander announces North Continent's Itsuki Tenma, and the crowd goes numb, while Izumi warns the rocks only get nastier, and Tenma just accepts it. In the artificial stage, the commander smugly asks Tenma's starting difficulty, while Tenma's eyes narrow, already past Rebo's defense and climbing absurdly higher, and the bald examiner starts sweating, pretending this chaos is somehow normal, because Tenma casually decides difficulty 5 is the only respectable answer, which sends the room into total panic, since even the brutes heard that madness, and the pink-haired girl plus Hikaru scramble in, scolding him for overdoing it. As the other students realize this weak-looking kid is actually national first place, then the test monster gets carved apart, its regeneration losing the argument, meaning reckless prodigies usually leave injured or expelled, not victorious, but Tenma just accepts the impossible and keeps climbing anyway. Difficulty 5. Rocks that huge, and the crowd instantly regrets existing. The examiner greenlights pre-use, while Tenma shrugs off skillless survival, barely mocking the danger. Then the room panics as the arrogant veterans realize this kid might actually be monstrous. So he detonates the test target, and its regeneration starts losing the argument. Hard. Even the witnesses flinch, because that blast looks less like training and more like a meteor. The aftermath keeps smoking, and suddenly nobody's laughing at the bloodied boy anymore. One commentator blurts the obvious verdict, "That guy is dead," which is almost insulting now. The medic panics over the injury report, while calling Tenma an idiot like that helps. Then someone spots his silhouette still standing, and the room collectively freezes. Because after all that, Tenma remains upright, and that is terrifying. The medical squad leader reports the injured boy's location, and panic spreads, while the phone crackles uselessly, because apparently calm leadership is already collapsing. Then Tenma casually picks difficulty 5, like common sense never existed, and even the veteran examiner freezes. Stunned he survived, that horror untouched, so the commander excuses everyone from his path, calling Tenma a top-class monster, as the entire crowd starts avoiding him. Suddenly worshipping that terrifying aura, the pink-haired girl rushes in, amazed his defense just widened the gap again, while Iberia mutters that perfection is fake, and even Rebo can beat him. Then the smug commentary dies completely, because Tenma looks like North Continent's Saya Kisaragi, and the warning lands hard, be careful, because this monster still answers calmly. The commander opens the artificial stage, letting their skills loose, and the pink-haired girl twists water into a wall. Ridiculous, but clean. Then Tenma answers with sheer force, turning that defense into scrap, while the veteran calmly judges his timing, because subtlety is gone. The girl keeps pressing, sweating now, realizing Tenma's gap is stupidly huge, and even the commander admits the boy's battle sense is absurdly adaptable, which leaves everyone staring as he gets praised instead of mocked, because the whole crowd already knows this monster survives the impossible, so the commander hails his growth while the others bow out fast, and the next name drops, making this terrifying day somehow worse. In the attack hall, Tenma's praise lands like a ridiculous love confession, while the squad shuffles onward, already treating the next test as obvious, and below them, the venue swallows a sea of witnesses, because subtlety died. Then Reiji's smug little circus appears, acting like stage control is genius. As he explains attack grading, the room practically begs for someone to humble him, and Tenma does, shutting the loudmouth down before his ego can finish stretching, leaving Reiji to boast about a Shikigami instead, because apparently embarrassment needed backup. Then Nendoroid Tonma arrives, a cheap-looking monster that somehow feels insulting, while the pink-haired girl and Hikaru panic over how creepy it looks, and Tenma just stares, blushing at the cute verdict, because of course he does. The instructor drops the nightmare rulebook on Tenma's target, and the arena gets serious, while the cocky crowd mocks the Shikigami, already auditioning for embarrassment, but Izumi coolly says even level 50 might fail, and ratings matter too. Then Tenma slams out a brutal hit, so the monster gets its precious 50, and the beast barely survives it, which is hilarious for something so ugly, because the scoring was rigged from the start, with perfection locked at 100, and Izumi casually flexes that only absurd power can reach it, not braggy amateurs, before declaring the test officially begins, as if this circus needed more humiliation. Then Reiji starts naming heavy hitters like that makes him important, but Tenma's dead-eyed stare says the Shikigami is trash, and the real gap is monstrous. Izumi cuts through the tension, ordering Tenma to attack once ready. Across the arena, the so-called harmless Shikigami already looks annoyingly casual. Tenma's strike lands cleanly, while Izumi keeps pretending this is a friendly test. The blow barely scratches the beast, and even that earns smug trivia. Still, the score crawls upward, exposing how absurdly low everyone else sits. Izumi coolly dismisses the whining, like mediocrity deserves zero sympathy here. Another attack spikes the numbers, and the ugly thing still clings on. Then Izumi names North Continent Gaku O, as if rankings are sacred scripture. Reiji puffs up next, mocking the cap, but nobody's buying his act. Tenma's stare says it all. The Shikigami is trash, and the gap monstrous. Tenma's first swing lands, and the friendly test starts looking expensive. Izumi barely blinks, calling the damage decent, like he owns disappointment. The beast still crawls forward, yet the scoreboard spits out 91 points. Reiji snorts at that number, acting superior while missing the entire point. The crowd panics over Tenma's absence, because everyone wants the monster's location. Izumi cuts in with the next reveal, North Continent's Itsuki Tenma, naturally. Behind him, the black-haired kid advances, carrying way too much silence. Then Izumi spots him, smugly promising to judge that monstrous strength himself. The witnesses finally connect the dots, whispering that this is Tenma. Reiji then flexes his hammer gimmick, bragging that power beats rank. Even first place looks cheap when Izumi sizes up Tenma's attack ceiling, because the beast still crawls in. While Tenma stands there like a nightmare upgrade, Reiji keeps sneering at the score, blissfully missing how hard he's being outclassed, and Tenma just answers with absurd violence, turning arrogance into a red smear. Then the monster gets shredded again, as his bare-handed pressure keeps escalating, while the same idiot spectators stare, realizing this trainee is anything but ordinary, except Reiji, who keeps lounging with that magazine swagger, pretending he owns the stage, until the blast rocks him, and suddenly his smug face screams pure regret, because the floor collapses into panic, and even his confidence gets launched backward, leaving everyone staring at Tenma, horrified that he tore monsters apart by hand. Tenma's stored-up critical hit finally detonates, and the arena notices, because even battered, he's still standing there like trouble with a pulse, while the monster's face is basically a landfill of bad decisions, and Tenma, annoyingly calm, starts asking for the score like it matters, as the crowd watches Hikara's smug certainty rot into open shock, since that unbreakable Shikigami just got casually outclassed by bare hands, meaning the system capped him at 100 only out of mercy, and Reiji stage owner swagger collapses when the gap becomes undeniable, with the masked overseer admitting the rules only allowed power above 50, leaving everybody frozen, because Tenma was already too monstrous to measure. Inside the ruined stage room, Tenma's new power already has the instructor sweating, while the monster crumples and the so-called expert starts looking very, very removable, so the test gets paused like a bad joke and everybody is told to wait. Then the pink-haired girl practically worships Tenma, and he downplays it with annoying humility, which only makes the earlier trash talker look worse, since Tenma hit 100 anyway, and now the crowd is busy roasting pride itself, while the timer drags on, as Tenma calmly agrees to meet later, looking way too composed for a living disaster, with the magic power test finally getting its next target, and Reiji suddenly in frame. Because the venue is packed, the woman in charge starts explaining the rules, and the audience immediately turns into a love-struck mess over her ridiculous beauty. The venue's love-struck chaos hits hard, and the silver-haired instructor owns it. Then she notices Tenma, while the crowd absolutely loses its dignity over him. Even the nervous onlookers start explaining the test setup, and what the red cloth hides. The system finally gets exposed as the instructor reveals her crystal gear. She lays out the measurement rules, acting far too calm for this circus. The crystal drinks in power, and of course the score rises with it. One student panics about wasting magic, because apparently basic logic arrived late. She smugly reassures him that the crystal absorbs power and returns it, too. He finally submits, looking like the whole room just outsmarted him publicly. And with questions exhausted, she coolly orders the test to begin. A loud volunteer steps up first, trying to impress the red-haired instructor, and she answers with that smug, velvet calm that screams trouble for him. Then the test begins. Because his genius plan was apparently pure ego, the crystal drinks his mana clean, and the power surge turns brutal, but the number stalls embarrassingly low, exposing his expert confidence as cosplay, while she casually fixes the rookie panic, making his nerves look adorable. Tenma's reading then detonates the room, because his ceiling was never real. The crowd starts losing its mind, as the crystal keeps swallowing absurd output, and she starts profiling his soul from the mana itself, which is invasive. Nof. Then she singles out the next challenger, smiling like this circus is just warming up. The whole arena is already regretting this defense test, because mana burnout is humiliating, and Tenma's exhausted stare makes everyone notice how fast their confidence evaporated, while the crowd's mood flips so hard it practically snaps its own neck, because the same people mocking him now look ready to worship the ceiling. Then Hanyu Kana steps in, cool as ever, while Tenma still raises his hand, and her North Continent rank 2 flex lands like a casual threat, not a greeting. That alone sends the witnesses spiraling, since suddenly the top talent is confirmed, and the room starts treating Tenma like Destiny's favorite nuisance, which is fair, as Kana smugly starts the next round, checking the orb like she owns it. Then a black-gloved hand seals the crystal, and the real nightmare begins. The crystal answers her touch, and the whole arena starts breathing green fire, with the orb swelling under that gloved hand like it hates being underestimated, while the smug spectators blurt out weak disappointment, acting brave for once. Then the dark crowd gets louder, joking that even northern elites look average, as the teal-haired awakener quietly seals the device and steals the room. The ornate mechanism clicks open, and the stage finally coughs up power. Then that power floods the circuit, making the measurements jump stupidly fast, and the onlookers panic as her mana suddenly roars several times stronger because the pressure keeps climbing, until even their mockery sounds pathetic. And now everyone's realizing this test just became a disaster with style. Inside the chamber, Tenma's stare says the test is already losing badly, and he quietly realizes that sword is her mana source. Naturally, so the crystal swallows her power and swells close to overflowing, while the teal-haired awakener pins the orb down, stealing the room. Then the red-haired woman smirks, bragging that 80% is elite, with her sword lifted like a trophy, while he keeps the pressure steady, and their bizarre little exchange turns into gender confusion for everyone, as the nearby students stare blankly, because the whole crowd looks cooked. Then she panics about the boys being crushed, which is adorable, honestly, and he answers by sending her mana back, like this was nothing. The red-haired stage mistress finally dumps the mana back, already spent. Then she smugly calls for the next volunteer, teasing the room's nerves. The black-haired boy pleads for mercy, but the crowd hears arrogance, not fear. So the redhead grins, calls him handsome, and escalates the humiliation. Tenma Itsuki finally steps up, and the crowd instantly starts second-guessing him. The teal-haired awakener challenges him coldly, while the spectators compare reputations. Their voices turn the test into mockery, because apparently having no weapon is trendy. Yet Tenma's mana skill exposes the crystal trick, and the orb keeps answering him. The detection gift starts feeding his power back, which is absurdly convenient. So even the instructor gets counted, and the whole room realizes the joke's on them. Every awakened here is already posturing, while the redhead pretends she's above it all, until Tenma's mana starts flooding the crystal and the room gets real quiet, because the skeptics are suddenly counting his bare-handed output like it's witchcraft, and the smug redhead's confidence melts the second she sees the crystal near full. Then the sphere keeps swelling under his hand, like it's desperate to survive. And even Tenma looks annoyingly calm while everyone else loses their minds, because the crystal is full, yet his mana still keeps pouring in. So the redhead panics and tries to stop it before the whole thing breaks, but Tenma just stares down the surge, making her warning look pathetic. The crystal is already screaming under Tenma's hand, purple light cracking. Then the whole thing surges harder. Like even the sphere hates losing, and now the smug crowd finally realizes this isn't normal anymore. Obviously, because the crystal should stop, yet it keeps swelling. While Choha panics, the room goes dead quiet, as Tenma keeps feeding power into it, and the redhead's warning suddenly sounds hilarious, because he just smiles, while everyone stares at the shattered meter and calls him a monster. Then the scene snaps backward to 10 years ago, where the real name lands, and that red-haired eye says it plain. Another abnormal freak has arrived. At the test site, the red-haired overseer acts way too casual, because apparently backup magic is a flex, while the black-haired boy insists he still has power left, and that confidence already feels expensive, except Tenma keeps standing there like a disaster in human form, making her worry the meter's doomed. Then her smug curiosity slips, because his remaining power is still leaking out everywhere, and Choha's palm meets the crystal, triggering a blinding blue surge that exposes his core. So the red-haired woman actually staggers, realizing this thing is not just abnormal, it's absurd, because the energy reeks of boiling regret and murderously cold intent, a deliciously cursed cocktail, and the whole room turns into a frozen circus, every witness staring at the same impossible boy, while the narration basically admits ordinary people would crack under this madness, but Tenma won't. The ruins of the test chamber loom over Tenma, and skill usage rules just got laughed off, because Itsuka's boots hit the floor, dragging the whole room toward the agility test, while pink-haired backup tries to stop the exit, only to meet his unreadable stare. And then she blurts out the magic test is already over, like that changes anything, but Oishi is busy projecting his pride in public, which, shockingly, is dying loudly, as Tenma's bloodied presence cuts through the panic and forces even her to shout a warning, yet the evaluation is already slipping, with everyone praying the score stays barely respectable. Then Tenma coolly reassures the shaken pair, as if chaos were some minor classroom inconvenience, and Oishi smugly admits defeat, because Tenma's just built different, annoyingly so. Pink-haired handler gets roasted for neglect, while she begs Tenma not to fail. Then the calm girl cuts through the panic, trusting him to handle the final test, and Tenma answers with that terrifyingly quiet stare, promising nothing but forward motion, while the whole station watches him head off like chaos is just background noise. Pink-haired backup keeps the morale alive, waving off the drama with absurd confidence, as the smug trainer explodes over Rebo's stupidity, blaming that mess on Itsuki, but she snaps back, insisting friends and history mean he won't half-ass this, and Oishi, grinning through the sweat, decides Itsuki's scores are still too high to tank, because even the clown finally realizes Itsuki is not stupid, just impossible. Tenma coolly promises a pathetic score, while the arena keeps looming around him, because he'd rather dodge bonus points than look eager for approval. Then he decides observation means more training, not more praise, and keeps advancing, while the smug commentators realize his earlier tests were probably flawless, which is embarrassing, so he aims for 0 in agility, just to stay with Saya and friends. Then that armored trio corners the North Continent kid, finally catching him, and Tenma answers their challenge like duels are a scheduled inconvenience, with Kagan and Iberia trading promise-heavy posturing right before the lightning drops, because Tenma has already decided waiting is over, and the next round gets ugly. The test hall turns into a circus, and the blonde prodigy keeps posturing, while Tenma just stares back, sounding way too calm for this mess, because he decides the showdown can wait, and the objective comes first, so the agility venue becomes a red-ringed death game, Cat and Mouse Deluxe, with Tenma grinning like the villain, proudly claiming the role of cat, and the crowd gets reduced to mice, which is honestly fitting for them. Since the rules are brutal, one mistake means you stay trapped inside, but Tenma still narrows it down to 1 minute, because apparently mercy is optional. Now the students complain about underestimating them, and Kagan just laughs. Perfect score. The smug opening pick gets named, and the room already smells disaster. Then Kagan plants a hand on his shoulder, making South Continent hype look fragile. The blonde lightning user still boasts speed, which is adorable in a death game, because Tenma casually removes the option to run, turning confidence into a funeral joke, and the so-called mouse tries flexing electricity, while Tenma smirks at the joke, since he only cares which target panics first, not the grandstanding. Then the battlefield blurs as the mouse vanishes, leaving shock and noise behind, and the blonde fool realizes too late that Tenma moves like a nightmare, before that hand crushes overhead, proving noisy prey never stays proud for long. That day, countless black monuments crash down, and barriers deployed, while the pink-haired student noticed something off, though she played it cool, because a monstrous pillar ripped the city open, and panic answered instantly. Then Ringa, the so-called demon of destruction, arrived like doom with muscles, and humanity got speedran into disaster, as civilians screamed for cover, while beasts tore through streets, forcing everyone to scatter beneath the carnage, as a roaring armored terror carved through the chaos, looking disgustingly unstoppable, but the blue vortex still swallowed the road, dragging desperate survivors onward, and a child named Itsuki reached for help, crying for his mom, as the horror finally hit home, and nobody looked brave anymore. Pink-haired girl stares in disbelief, already sensing this mess got personal, while the dark-haired boy freezes up, and yes, he is crying again, because a teacher barges in, acting casual about the school-wide assembly, weirdly enough, then lectures them on Awakens and the old river crossing war, like that's normal, before one student points out Izumi Nento, the Northern Continent's commander, and suddenly the legend sounds less like a grandpa, more like a problem, since he was the first awakened, and Awan Tewajin's strongest student, apparently, with research now proving ordinary people can awaken by touching monuments, so Izumi shows up in full nightmare armor, demanding everyone try awakening, and the whole place answers with explosions, because subtlety died first. The monument erupts from below, and everyone misreads the miracle, only to hear Itsuki and the others finally smell awakening, while the pink-haired girl clings to the crowd, begging no one vanish, as the black-haired boy stands frozen, red-eyed, and already halfway broken. Then Izumi Nento announces this day like a legend collecting volunteers, but the monument answers with a giant wall and a brutally simple verdict, leaving students spiraling as record-breaking heroes suddenly feel useless, yet the next candidates keep stepping up, because panic loves company, until the adults admit no one has awakened, and the fear gets contagious. Then the sunglasses-wearing commander keeps calling names, like disaster is somehow still organized. The crowd is already judging the kid, and loving every second, until the barrier explodes, dumping disaster right into the courtyard. Then Oishi Hikaru decides numbers alone will win respect, embarrassingly, because a 12-stat total somehow becomes his whole personality. And naturally, he struts around like the first awakened, chosen by destiny, while the brown-haired kid just keeps getting yanked through the mob, but his fury snaps loud enough to terrify everyone nearby, as whispers spread that Tenma Itsuki is cutting straight into the line, and even Izumi Nento senses this boy is carrying dangerous fire, because hatred for the beasts has burned itself into his soul. One crimson eye snaps open, and the whole nightmare finally blinks back, while a towering awakened presence looms over the boy like judgment itself, because this isn't power anymore, it's a god-level accident detonating upward. As the barrier flowers across the city, swallowing rooftops in electric blue, the crowd loses its mind, and even Oisha's bragging starts sounding pathetic. Then the blue-haired analyst drops the verdict. This is order breaker nonsense, which leaves Oishi staring like someone just unplugged his entire personality, while the black-haired boy floats in that sea of light, totally lost. Tenma Itsuka's panel finally confirms the cheat code. 0 becomes everything, and just like that, his worthless stats explode into an 8 to 100 disaster. The rookie finally pieces it together, and that smug confidence spills into a promise to crush disaster beasts, because apparently, bright lightning was enough to blind the whole room, and the poor spectators are already whining while the barrier swallows. The blue-haired analyst nearly drops her cool, realizing this boy's name is Tenma Itsuki, and his panel just became a school-wide legend, while the crowd erupts over stats nobody expected, which leaves Oishi fuming like a man whose spotlight got stolen by a loser, as he threatens Silver Serpent, and Tenma stands there with Order Breaker active, quietly rewriting reality. Tenma's reading surges past halfway, and the room starts holding its breath. Lightning tears through the floor, turning that smug test into a demolition show, while everyone panics over Tenma's vanishing act and the barrier swallowing his trail. Then he reappears at 88%, towering over Oishi's crumbling confidence, and casually informs him he'd be erased if this were some beast hunt. The crowd keeps stumbling over his sudden jump, while Oishi's arrogance starts peeling apart, because Tenma hits 99%, and the whole field practically kneels to the spectacle. Analysis finally locks in, revealing Thunderbreaker acquired, plus absurd lightning absorption perks. Even the spectators need sunglasses now, which is hilarious considering who got blinded first. And of course Tenma gets yanked back into that analysis space, because reality loves trolling him. The barrier crackles open, and Tenma stands center stage, absurdly calm, while everyone watches his lightning bloom brighter than Oishi's pathetic flex. Then his stats spike again, and that masked, red-eyed creep keeps looming. As the weather dies, the schoolyard turns ugly, and panic starts spreading, because a flying monument drops overhead, crashing the whole emergency into chaos, forcing the blue-haired woman to abort assembly and blame the monument nonsense. Even she realizes escape is pointless when the target keeps standing there, and the others notice Tenma's too composed, which is somehow worse, so the field erupts with motion, while he stands under those killer numbers, before reality yanks him into the analysis space with brutal efficiency. Panic hits first, as the masked red-eyed kid warns disaster beasts and vows annihilation, and the glasses guy practically begs everyone to run, because heroics here are stupid, but Tenma stays cold, somehow more terrifying than the monsters. So they trust him, even while the pink-haired girl panics, and the others insist a newly awakened rookie is doomed. Then Tenma's grin turns feral, already eyeing the disaster beast as his first enemy, and he laughs off the monster as the one who murdered his parents. Lucky break apparently, while the system flaunts a skeleton soldier's absurd stats, making the whole battlefield look petty. Tenma wonders if he should test his new skill, because subtlety clearly died today. Lightning erupts as he charges the skeletal horror, turning the courtyard into a blue storm, and the attack lands with such force, even his next words feel like a promise. Under the barrier collapse, the pink-haired girl watches helplessly as terror blooms, while Tenma crushes the disaster beast, proving rookie panic was always the joke, and the monster flies apart through the schoolyard, courtesy of blue lightning fury. So the onlookers start admitting Tenma is absurdly strong, inconveniently enough, because even that skeleton soldier was packed with ridiculous defenses and bonefire, and Tenma just walks into the flames, turning pain into a math problem. Then the crowd blurts his name, while Hikaru embarrasses himself trying to sneer. But the blue-haired analyst catches the trick, and the system starts scanning, realizing the analysis only accelerates when enemy skills keep hammering him, which is bad news, because this genius is already burning through disaster itself. Tenma's stare says he is still hiding power, which is terrifyingly rude, because the analysis hits 100% and his enemies are basically cooked, while the crowd groans for doubting him, now forced to eat that nonsense, and Tenma calmly asks for another skill, like disaster as a hobby. Then Blackwall lands, absurdly boosting stats and patching every injury, so the blue aura swallows him whole, turning him into a healing nightmare. Even the onlookers who panicked first start cheering, because of course they do, but the blue-haired analyst notices the real joke, a self-healing order breaker, and she wonders how far that ridiculous regeneration could possibly go, as the bonefire monster dives in, only to get torn apart again. Blue flames choke the battlefield, and Tenma's regeneration keeps mocking reality. Then the whole body gets swallowed alive by that same unstoppable blaze. The masked, red-eyed monster keeps staring from the chaos, like doom got invited, while the crowd finally realizes this rookie is the actual problem here, because the scan exposes Tenma as absurdly gifted, and Hikaru's smug act collapses into panic. As the blue-haired analyst catches the joke behind order breaker growth, now the disaster beast still charges, but Tenma answers with crystal armor, slipping behind its back so fast only awakened eyes can barely track it, and even Hikaru can't hide the horror anymore, since the movement is unreadable, while Tenma's body keeps hardening into a weaponized nightmare, offense and defense. The rookie's cold stare already has Itsuki screaming through the chaos, then the relieved hug lands awkwardly, because priorities apparently exist now, and everyone starts asking where Seiya vanished, like panic needed extra seasoning. The answer hangs ugly in the air, and suspicion starts spreading. Even veterans whisper that a skeleton-slaying boy just embarrassed Elite Awakeners, while the blue-haired analyst watches that miracle and labels it Order Breaker. Then the commander finally corners Tenma Itsuki, confirming the name at last. Behind him, the nightmare creature still towers, but Tenma barely flinches. The crowd notices Izumi Nento talking to him, and starts losing its mind. Hikaru, now sweating through the humiliation, panics and offers to hunt Saya. The room calls him special, and the atmosphere gets instantly poisonous, but Tenma just stares back, acting like the hype is amateur hour, while the darkness around him practically admits his hatred runs deep, and the masked commander wants the full explanation for that fury, because 10 years ago his parents died protecting him from beasts. Then lightning tears through his body, and he nearly becomes another casualty, until an awakened saving him forces the truth into his memory. His mother's final lesson lingers in blue flame, pushing him onward, and now the realization hits. Those monsters took his family, so the whole root of evil finally gets named, and Tenma breaks. The root of all evil towers overhead, and the boy finally names it, because that nightmare once shattered his life and forged his vendetta, while his own eyes turn monstrous, wet with hatred and impossible resolve, after his mother's death left one side crying and the other ice-cold. Then Itsuki lays out the ugly truth, and yeah, tragedy really did make him choose violence, so Izumi coolly offers the Salvation League, as if premium trauma packaging fixes everything. The organization sounds absurdly grand, with continents, saviors, and scientific beast-slaying bravado, plus outrageous perks, because apparently monster fighting comes with wages that buy cars, and brutal duty, since those generous saviors are thrown to the front lines. But Tenma refuses the sales pitch, caring only about what matters most: revenge. Tenma's hatred boils over, because saving people now means hunting beasts on front lines, and Izumi frames the Salvation League like a glorious exam, with top 100 glory. But the real bait is brutal survival. Since stats decide who gets used, then the old record drops in. Taewajin's absurd 115,000 points, casually humiliating everyone, while Tenma learns the benchmark belongs to the legendary Strongest Awakened, that ridiculous ceiling, and Izumi warns that chasing Jin blindly only breeds despair. Though confidence might survive, so Tenma digs in harder, vowing to surpass Taewajin instead of worshipping him, as one crimson eye watches from the bars, quietly measuring the freakish awakening, and even the mentor admits the next sunrise has finally arrived for Jin. He accepts the challenge, because the future is coming whether anyone deserves it. A strange monument looms ahead, and everyone's already feeling the bad omen, because these things are gateways to disaster beasts, not some heroic landmark, and the facility exists to isolate the ones that survive, conveniently brutal, meaning training is just corporate speak for controlled meat grinder nonsense, especially in rookie stage, where the mortality rate laughs at beginners, since Jin cleared this nightmare in 3 minutes and 14 seconds, casually ruining morale, so the benchmark becomes absurdly simple. Beat that, or stay irrelevant, and Izumi doubles down, basically offering mentorship to anyone reckless enough to qualify, which is why the crowd starts whispering about Mr. Izumi and that rumored rookie, while Tenma just stares, unimpressed, wondering if fame is really all that impressive. Disaster Beast level 10 flashes up, and the whole stage instantly feels doomed, while the crowd chickens out, whispering that only idiots enter this meat grinder. Then the gray-haired receptionist calmly takes Tenma's challenge, and asks the ridiculous question. He answers with infuriating confidence, because apparently he came for the stage alone, and the room freezes as everyone stares at this lone rookie like he lost his mind. But the receptionist panics, insisting this artificial stage can maul or kill people, which only makes the nearby spectators laugh harder, mocking him for mistaking combat for flirting. Yet Tenma shuts that nonsense down, saying he wants the stage, not her. Even when she offers her contact like a pity prize, he just dismisses the whole charade, because revenge matters more than charm, and his eyes say this situation is already beneath him. The receptionist caves, warning him death is the deluxe price here, while the crowd roasts his bravado and his missed chance at her contact, because a level 0 rookie challenging a level 10 stage is comedy. Yet Tenma scans in, treating the bracelet like a passport to vengeance, and the system finally approves. Awaken Tenma Itsuki, no takebacks. As the 3-minute countdown starts, he folds his hands like a menace. Then the whole room watches the timer hit 88 seconds. Ridiculous luck. Before his aura detonates and the stage answers with violent crimson pressure, the arena suddenly feels vast, his first artificial battlefield stretching beyond expectations, and Tenma steps in snarling, ready to prove revenge matters more than fear. Kodama number 1307 gets dragged into the stage, a level 4 nobody, and the panel throws up his joke tier stats like an obituary for dignity. Then the battlefield chat turns smug, calling the axe perfect for cutting trees, while the monster horde charges in, only to get treated like rotten lumber, because the commander explains why this rookie got shoved here. And yes, Jin challenged first, though even that sounds impossible unless Hes beyond humanity, which is such a humble way to say absurd. The blue-haired observer starts connecting the dots, realizing Jin isn't merely talented. Those eyes after the disaster beast kill looked cold, lonely, and disgustingly non-human, more like some sunlit god descending just to outshine everyone in the room, and that leaves the tragic verdict that this boy is still an unpolished monster of potential. Tenma's hatred twists him into something darker than Jin, a demon. But over-mimesis won't even bite against disaster beasts this huge, so the battlefield goes black-red as his glare turns eerily inhuman, and the first swing tears through the monster like cheap rotten timber. Even then, the aftermath is mocked as a simple is that all, because level 10 beasts clearly hide a second layer of nonsense here. While Tenma quietly realizes this isn't over, his eye sharpening, then Blackwall answers, trapping the regenerated Kodama mid-rampage. The system exposes its bloated stats, proving this thing was no joke. And Tenma drives his fist in, because hesitation would be hilarious. Tenma decides the only answer is overwhelming damage before regeneration can catch up, and the monster's body gets shredded again, yet its cursed health bar still crawls upward, while his red-eyed form keeps pressing harder, carving through the battlefield's twisted remains, as the barrier splits open like a wounded skull, exposing how bad this fight really is. So he stops playing nice and declares the ugly truth. It must be minced completely, and the monster's hulking frame finally shows the cracks, every layer tearing under relentless force, with debris and regeneration energy spiraling everywhere. Proof that this thing was absurdly durable. But Tenma barely flinches, because Blackwall is already draining him for the finish. Then the beast erupts in a last desperate surge, making his expression sharpen into pure contempt, since every recovery only feeds his analysis, and now he's one step from ending it. Tenma scraps Blackwall, hoarding mana while Thunderbreaker buys space. But the clock is brutal, and that cursed 3-minute limit is creeping closer. So he stacks Thunderbreaker with Blackwall, dragging analysis toward completion. The strain spikes, yet he keeps the monster regenerating just to learn faster. One more hit lands, and his vow turns ugly, because dying now means nothing. Red-eyed and feral, he accepts the drain and keeps pressing harder. The monster finally cracks, every jagged limb shaking under that relentless pressure. Even then he spits out one last curse, looking properly cornered for once. At 99%, the beast still clings to hope, which is adorable. Then analysis hits 100, and Tenma decides this match is finished. The analysis finally clicks, and Lotus Burst crowns the monster's overconfidence. Then the second tier detonates, turning its regeneration into expensive regret. Tenma stays inside the blooming chaos, gaining stats while the beast panics. The Lotus fully opens, erasing debuffs and basically bullying the creature's body. Even the masked claws flinch, because that grab meant nothing against him. The blast erupts next, roasting Kodama, while the battlefield turns into fireworks. What's left gets launched through the smoke, looking far less cocky now. Tenma smirks through the wreckage, quietly admitting the move is actually decent. His magic is still climbing, and even over-mimesis is starting to look useful. Then the battered boy stands there with a crystal spear, and everybody freezes. 3 minutes in, and the rookie still hasn't crawled out, which is hilarious. Even the blue-haired watcher doubts hellbeat disaster beasts. But clearly he's embarrassing logic. Then the system flashes, new record achieved, and everybody nearby starts panicking. The blue-haired woman stares harder, because this clear time is absurd. Not even 3 minutes pass before the stage declares Tenma Itsuka's victory. There he is, wrecked shirt, smug silence, looking like the damage was mostly on purpose. The crowd freaks out over disaster beasts, while he casually outpaces their pride. Izumi's looming approval hangs over him, so the rookie finally asks for guidance. Instead, Tenma answers with that sharp little grin, as if being a prodigy is normal. Even the blue-haired woman realizes father's pleased, and that's the real nightmare. The crowd finally connects Tenma to Izumi Nento, and instantly panics, while the gray-haired attendant offers a reward, then apologizes for earlier disrespect. But Tenma's only concern is whether arrogant rookies ever get prizes, and the blushing receptionist nearly melts, because even gratitude looks awkward when he's this calm. Then the blue-haired woman moves to leave him behind, acting way too important, only to get told off for treating Izumi's student like disposable cargo, with Tenma now warned that advanced stages are the real next wall, because disaster beast strength isn't just level, it's twisted species advantage, and some of those monsters are smart enough to make brute force look amateur, which is terrifying, since this cocky rookie just got invited to fight smarter nightmares. Blue-haired analyst coolly explains, monsters and awakens share the same species, but jobs split them. Then she narrows advanced stages into brutal, intelligent disaster zones, and points Tenma there. Tenma's eyes harden as he realizes the beast can think, and even feel pain. That scares the room, because his aura suddenly feels like a nightmare with homework. Meanwhile, students whisper that Izumi is sending the record breaker against North District 4's monster turf. They panic harder when Kinoshita Reiji's name drops, and everyone starts clamping mouths shut. The rumor lands like a slap. He's the governor's son, and apparently nobody dares wait him out. So he lounges in luxury, bragging all stages their answer to him, naturally. Even his smug grin screams rich kid immunity, as if laws were for commoners. Then the prize box opens, because apparently arrogance also comes with a shiny reward. Under the trees, the trio circles the memory shard, and the mood turns lethal. Tenma studies the glowing karma stone, already sensing this gift is not normal. The explanation lands harder than expected, because disaster beasts leave these level-up stones behind. Blue-haired guidance spells out the difference, and his stare says he is catching up fast. A rare intermediate stone appears, so of course the rookie gets the deluxe version. She keeps talking like a tutor, admitting these stones are basically experience in physical form. The dead beast lesson gets uglier, because karma is just loot with trauma attached. Tenma absorbs the crystal, and the screen practically screams that he leveled up. Then the commander quietly ties it together, blaming Tenma's gift for why it spawned here. And that explanation hangs there, while the stage keeps pretending it can still surprise him. She blurts out gift, and suddenly Tenma's awakening feels way too expensive. The explanation drops. Disaster beasts leave karma behind, not just bodies. One beast's karma skipped Tenma, then hit everyone else in the stage. Since the arena was enclosed, the loose karma clumped into a stone. So the can't level up problem becomes his ridiculously rare workaround. The blue-haired guide panics. Because awakened gifts are supposed to stay secret, she hands him the stone, then politely assigns him 6 stages of homework. Then comes the teacher speech. All confidentiality and moral support. How inspiring. Tenma answers with that dangerous little smile, while everyone else keeps sweating. Outside, Kinoshita's crew blocks the gate, still pretending ownership of North District 4. Inside North District 4, greedy gatekeepers mock money and block the entrance, until the ominous red-eyed watcher makes the threat feel suddenly very real. Then Tenma crashes through their confidence, and the room's swagger starts evaporating. Even the blonde brute gets rocked hard, his muscle memory turning into comedy, while another hit keeps the pressure rising and the crowd's nerves completely snapping, because his so-called B-rank Earthspine already looks embarrassingly useless now, and the blonde's face twists into pure panic as Tenma's power turns monstrous, with everyone finally realizing Earthspine pierces anything, except a growing nightmare, as the red-eyed form bears down, all fury and zero mercy, leaving the smug rich kid sprawled out, thoroughly introduced to humiliation. A level 12 monster just erased 2 elites, and the room panics. Reiji's enforcer still tries threatening stage trespassers, now hilariously late. The blonde brute gets wrecked, proving his swagger was paper thin. His crew cackles, until Tenma's presence makes their confidence rot. That same blonde bully freezes, realizing this newcomer is not bait. Tenma stands there, glowing with that terrifying, impossible authority. The crowd starts whispering, suddenly noticing the blue-haired woman beside him. The brute doubles down, demanding obedience like a fake king. Tenma answers with chilling logic, refusing to play by Reiji's rules. And just like that, the whole stage monopoly starts collapsing. The blue-haired commander shuts down the broken bully, handing Tenma's punishment off, while his status screen detonates the room and leaves everyone whispering about him, because even the loudest braggart starts sweating when Tenma's pressure cuts through the crowd, and that smug gap in levels suddenly feels less like confidence, more like denial, so the blonde punk lunges in, only to get folded in one humiliating hit, which sends the bystanders into panic, realizing this level 0 rumor is absurdly dangerous. Then Tenma catches the armored brute cleanly, smothering his metallization like it's nothing, and the crowd freaks out when the defense trick gets shut down on sight, because even with enhanced fists, the bully can only flail against Tenma's calm, until the final blast proves swagger means nothing without power, and he gets buried. To land a surprise hit on a higher-level enemy, Tenma reads the gap, then plants himself in the chaos, deciding over-mimesis needs pressure to bloom. The defense monster's metallized armor looks smug, until Tenma targets the flesh, and that first kick lands so cleanly, it practically mocks the so-called shield. The blonde brute sneers about weaklings, which is adorable coming from this guy, because Tenma already exposed the bluff and flipped from bait to full throttle. Lightning surges announce the real problem, and even the veteran fighter panics. As Tenma's speed keeps climbing, shredding every attempt to harden in time, the spectators finally realize this level 0 rumor is a nightmare, and the bully, sweating through his bravado, knows Hez about to get buried. The poor bastard is trapped in a blue lightning storm, begging for help, and now he's swallowing panic, because backing down clearly isn't happening. While Tenma keeps driving forward, turning pain into momentum like it's nothing, even the armored brute starts sweating, realizing his metallized body just became a test subject because Tenma's analysis rockets upward, and the defense gimmick suddenly looks embarrassingly overrated. Then the monster brags about mercy, which is hilarious from someone already losing control, as the onlookers freak out over defense over 500, calling him a level 0 nightmare, but Tenma calmly reads the magic gap, watching the percentage crawl toward perfection, and the commander finally admits the kid's intuition is absurdly sharp, which is bad news, because Tenma is done playing around, and that 100% finish is coming fast. Blue Lotus blooms again, and the arena braces for Tenma's comeback, while the observers panic, calling this weird orb either genius or disaster. Then his metallization analysis finishes, and Clear Orb gets hilariously stolen, because his dead-eyed stare promises to smash that prize defense anyway. Stats explode upward, injuries vanish, and the kid becomes absurdly overfed. Then he tells the target to dodge, like mercy ever existed here. The crowd finally realizes Order Breaker means nobody has seen this before, as Clear Orb fires, a perfect black sphere with vicious purple light, leaving the students frozen, because that tiny ball already feels unfair, and Reiji's smug complaint lands like a joke, right before humiliation. That smug warning about Clear Orb sounds brave, until Tenma laughs at it, because this tiny sphere is already rewriting the room's hierarchy, and the commander notices. Then the defense keeps rotting, the fatal blow lands, and the bully's confidence evaporates. As blood splashes out, that grandstanding titan finally realizes he is the target. Meanwhile, Tenma's stats keep exploding, injuries vanish, and the whole arena gets awkwardly small. He even reminds the loser to dodge, since mercy is apparently the joke of the day, and when the arm gets blasted off, the crowd just stares at the price of arrogance, while the black-haired kid coolly tells the next critic to get lost too. So the suit-wearing entourage can only gape at the fallen wreck, no longer useful, and the audience explodes into cheers, because yes, the monster kid really won. Two eager teammates pitch a fast clear, and Tenma instantly declines, because that flaming rock execution ground chews squads alive, even with healers. Then his defense reading matches Ogas, and the absurd upgrade keeps climbing, while the others beg him to choose. He casually announces solo mode. Now the onlookers realize the prodigy wants every point for himself, and that confidence spike gets mocked as overhype, earned from beating Oga, but the blue-haired commander calmly admits his strength, while warning arrogance has limits, since those disaster beasts still drain magic like maniacs, and teams matter less than stamina, so she shoves the injured towards safety, while Tenma keeps staring down the stage, and the whole room can only watch the freakish newcomer outgrow their expectations. Entry gets approved, and suddenly Tenma's name starts sounding dangerously official, because those calm eyes already know there are more monsters than expected, and sure enough, the disaster beast crowd proves the stage is no joke, with a stat window screaming level 9 and defense absurdly outclassing the rest. So Tenma tests Clear Orb conditions, treating a nightmare like a warm-up. Then the orb blooms into purple chaos, because his skill ceiling refuses manners, while the beast eats the hit and somehow still looks offended by existence. But the core drops, the statue collapses, and the room realizes he won. Clear orb speed spikes again, because apparently overkill needed a second mode, and Tenma stands there as the remaining monsters charge, tragically underprepared. Tenma turns ruthless here, branding the slow monsters easy clear orb prey, and the system instantly rewards him, cashing in another ridiculous speed upgrade, while the shattered arena proves his target count is still embarrassingly high, with 2 rushing him, 1 unseen boss, and 3 threats left, naturally, so he decides 1 orb should somehow erase both problems at once. Then the purple blast lands, and the statue faceplants like cheap decor, clearing the path fast. He twists the opening into a clean setup. Now, and that flash drives clear orbs straight through the next stone body, until the level 9 and 10 statues both explode into more bonuses, leaving Tenma wrecked, breathless, and begging for a recovery skill someday. Tenma's finally moving at ridiculous speed, treating escapees like warm-up targets, and that first clear orb smashes through the stone brute like cheap plywood, leaving the next monster cracking apart too, while he barely even blinks, because the so-called B-rank giant turns out to be a 50-ton ego balloon. Then Thunderbreaker surges in, boosting his agility like the game is rigged, so he sizes up the towering stone freak and wonders if 1 orb is enough, before realizing the head is the only polite place to end this embarrassment, and the opening appears as his lightning threads slice the titan wide open, but the orb looks tiny, which is hilarious until it starts drilling through, and Tenma rockets past the wreckage, proving the small attack was a massacre. Tenma's midair panic says everything, because this monster now owns the sky. So Black Wall snaps in, and the first hit lands like cheating. The giant explodes apart anyway, proving brute size is just expensive trash. Tenma grins through the rubble, then analyzes the beast like a problem. Overmimesis kicks in, because apparently copying Doom is his new hobby. Reiji hears the chaos and finally loses that smug, polished museum face. The bald bodyguard freezes behind him, while Tenma keeps insulting stage logic. Reiji tries to recover, but the bad news keeps getting louder. Someone has breached Oga and shoved their way into the stage. Now even the onlookers panic, because this runaway rookie is wrecking their rules. With higher-ranked monsters tied up, low-level rookies stay trapped here, so that smug Guardian can keep pretending Oga is untouchable, naturally. But this stage's famous disaster beasts waste time, not patience, and the red-haired heir still wants more caution, because Panic hates him. His bald shadow just stands there while he doubles down, sweating. Then the receptionist gets the full tantrum treatment, as if authority were charisma. Meanwhile, Tenma finally cuts through the noise and starts growing comfortable, because that grotesque beast gets dissected into a textbook, line by line. Instead of a new skill, he upgrades Clear Orb and its effects. And even the passive bonus jumps again, because absurdity clearly has levels. Tenma finally approves his own gamble, and Clear Orb surges upward, burning through magic so fast even he calls the output pathetic. Then the giant stone beast gets crushed under a ridiculous blast, while his stats spike again, and the monster's body keeps peeling apart. Yeah, he jokes about overdoing it, because modesty never survived this fight. The next kill supercharges Clear Orb's flight speed, turning brute force into a scary little system where repeated clears make it absurdly lethal, and Tenma, now oddly relaxed, realizes passive effects are the real cheat code, as Lotus Burst stretches that range farther, making distance start to feel irrelevant, so now disaster beasts are basically future roadkill from ridiculous range. The stage screen flashes success, and Tenma's clear record gets absurdly updated, while the crowd stares like 3 minutes and 1 second is cheating, because his level still reads 0, and that little bug joke only deepens the humiliation. Then the blue-haired analyst smugly praises the repeat, clear, and broken records, admitting the disaster beasts were pitiful against defense, which is hilarious hindsight, as a glowing butterfly drifts between them, turning the whole room unreal, and she casually reveals herself as a Shikigami user, with that pretty thing as hers. Tenma, for once, looks genuinely caught off guard, calling the butterfly beautiful. Then he asks about awakened jobs, only to get hit with the obvious, because she explains there are 4 job types, and he has already seen 3. Elementalists rule the 7 forces, and somehow still get mocked, while that lightning-class classmate's stats crashing down turns his swagger into comedy, because the so-called Oha-type powerhouse earlier was just another loud disaster, and then a Shikigami user enters, commanding beasts like a walking cheat code, with Tamacho and Izumi Choha making Tenma's screen look hilariously pathetic, before the blue-haired analyst casually asks if he has any questions left, only to roast him for his Shikigami being stronger than its master, which lands so hard even her smug face twitches into concern. since she explains Shikigami level up by absorbing experience, unlike their owners, meaning the smart move now is simple: target the user and skip the pet. The blue-haired analyst feels that negative aura creeping back, and that's never a good sign, while Tenma keeps pressing for answers, now trapped in a conversation he can't outsmart, because she finally unveils the third job, the one nobody understands and everybody fears, then casually names him an order breaker. Like he's some rare glitch the world failed to patch, and the explanation gets nastier, since every order breaker bends reality with different nonsense, from body-morphing monsters to clone-spamming freaks, basically nature's most unfair cheat menu, except the real twist is the skill tiers, where these oddities ignore normal rank rules, which is why revealing them is dangerous, and why her father shut that question down hard, because Tenma apparently has at least 3 skills, 2 exclusive to elementalists, meaning he's broken even among freaks, and now the poor kid realizes silence is safer, because talking more could get him punished. The blue-haired commander starts by demanding the missing last job, and clearly loves suspense, then punishes his secrecy by promising the answer only after he actually shows it, because Tenma caves with a muttered fine, while she casually needles his gratitude and plans, and when he mentions clearing the stage again, she coolly warns him about cooldowns, smug as ever. His face drops at that absurd mechanic, realizing stages can be hoarded like a rigged casino, so he asks about disaster beast stages, hoping brute force can solve everything, naturally, only for her to reveal one packed with locust-class swarms, which sounds less like a dungeon and more like a plague factory. She keeps going, explaining the beasts are weak individually, but the sheer numbers terrify awakened fighters, and when he worries about lacking area attacks, she reassures him with the confidence of someone already judging the others, while the surrounding trio of thugs stay uselessly silent, because Tenma is definitely not staying out of this. They're already eyeing the locust wasteland, and Tenma's fear-free reputation keeps spreading. The crowd panics, backing away from the crossfire while pink-haired nerves quietly vanish, because the target's gone missing, and 30 minutes later that execution ground is already cleared, which makes arrogant bystanders look ridiculous as they realize Tenma just embarrassed the timetable, so they hunt traces, order the hound called in, and pretend this wasn't humiliating. Then the red-haired brat starts ranting about capturing him alive, as if that helps. Down in the alley, even Kinoshita Rageous Assassin admits the guy was terrifying, and without an Earth escape trick, that poor fool would have been deleted on sight. But Tenma has already gone too far to feel safe, which is adorable optimism. Then the locust beast lunges, and the whole confidence bubble gets brutally popped. The death hound is already chewing through the smugness, and his target is screaming, while Charles casually orders the monster to ease up, proving this man treats murder like customer service. Then the cornered prey whines about being found, which is rich after hiding like trash. As Charles explains, death itself can smell him, turning the chase into pure humiliation. And yes, Hound Charles can track that stench, because apparently the elite brought a bloodhound with a fedora, while the governor's son begs not to be killed, only to be reminded his family's name changes nothing. As Charles smirks and calls this mealtime, his red eye promising this guy is finished, then the beast tears in, shredding the monster's pride before the body can even recover, and just when the hound levels up, Charles stands there like a smug final boss, reading the stat screen, before his phone rings, because even apex hunters get interrupted when the circus rolls back in. A panic call lands first, and suddenly he looks badly injured, while the hunting hound of death arrives, eager for fresh prey. Then the team reaches Locust Wasteland, staring at that ridiculous dome, and Tenma checks the Wheat Sea, realizing this nightmare has structure. As the blue-haired analyst explains, disaster beasts clearly prefer their playground, with the receptionist crying about no desk here, because apparently Apocalypse needs paperwork. Then she drops the brutal rule that this stage is beyond normal escape, and Tenma gets the warning that locusts are absurdly numerous, so one mistake means Swarm City, before the horde proves her right and devours everything in a filthy blur, leaving a skull-bound warning that he's already down to the marrow. So yeah, the bug farm is real, and Tenma loves that kind of nightmare. Hez not thrilled about dying to insects, which is fair, honestly. The analyst watches his attitude and decides he's still weirdly fine, because he walked in alone, got briefed, and was handed zero mercy. Then she remembers the small print, locusts multiply forever without the boss, and that forgotten detail hits her face like a truck, beautifully late. While he stands in the wasteland, the whole mess feels officially doomed. So the next warning lands. Pests, wake up, because extermination just arrived. The Wheat Sea waits like a silent joke, and the swarm laughs louder. Tenma answers by promising cleanup, like Apocalypse was just another warm-up. A dead wheat plain makes the locust boss rule look painfully tiny, because these pests are low-level trash, and that is somehow the joke. Then the swarm floods in, and Tenma just grins at the numbers, since more clustering only makes his Lotus Burst plan hilariously better. So when they pile into range, he basically says now, amateur hour, and Lotus Burst detonates like the apocalypse finally learned manners, wiping level 1 and 2 locusts clean, while his range keeps climbing, meaning each kill feeds the skill, and the swarm just pays the bill, with 110 defeats turning into a smug 10% boost all at once, so his Lotus Burst stretches to 10.5 meters, and he calls that decent. Against disaster beasts this level, Tenma decides 10% magic should be enough, and he smugly calculates cooldowns, already wishing stages had 0 downtime, honestly. Then the system still refuses his victory notice, which is suspiciously rude, so when a survivor finally gets spotted, the whole routine gets exposed, and the battlefield erupts as Lotus Burst starts farming locusts for free upgrades, because Mother's will belongs to the boss. Yet Tenma only realizes that mid-beating, so he pivots hard, planning to spam Lotus Burst until the real monster appears, which is adorable, considering he still has no clue where the boss is, but the swarm keeps exploding anyway, feeding his range like an unpaid internship, until Lotus Burst reaches 16 meters, and Tenma calls that outstanding effectiveness. Tenma watches the aftermath, and realizes the bosses still refuse to show, so the swarm keeps returning, and his endless clearing starts looking painfully efficient. Every kill feeds the analysis loop, because apparently these locusts are free upgrade material. He calmly counts Lotus Burst uses left, which is exactly the kind of dangerous optimism. Then the skill detonates through another target, and his range keeps climbing like a scam. The blast chews through enemies again, turning his one more time into a running joke. Each new defeat stacks the passive, and the screen starts screaming about absurd range gains. Tenma keeps chaining Lotus Burst anyway, blasting everything in sight with zero mercy. Even he notices, the remaining magic looks pathetic now, yet the bugs keep spawning. So the battlefield just becomes an endless slaughterhouse, and the boss still never arrives. The boss still hasn't appeared, so Tenma keeps the stage to himself. He starts mocking retreat as cowardice, because third-raters love bad opinions. Then he goes full beast mode, vowing to crush every disaster creature. The arena erupts under Lotus Burst, and the swarm gets vaporized again. With that, Tenma's body keeps adapting, looking less human by the second. Yet more enemies pour in, and the analysis meter somehow refuses to drop. That's when Tenma realizes the real boss is this absurd reproduction trick. The Queen Locust finally gets identified, proudly bragging about infinite spawning. So Tenma accepts the ugly truth. Beating the boss is the only way out. Then his analysis hits 100%, and a clean counterattack finally materializes. Tenma's detection skill spikes absurdly, Lotus range stretching past 1000 m, and suddenly this passive setup looks perfect, because apparently free power is cheating. He decides to wrap this stage fast, while keeping Choha waiting. Then magic detection levels up, stats climb, and his body starts looking less human. A giant scan reveals the boss location, with everything rippling outward like a spotlight. Yet the real problem is the Queen Locust, smugly multiplying disaster like a bad joke. Tenma locks onto that Eye of Rot, finally spotting the reproduction gimmick, and answers with a violet strike. Because subtlety died 5 panels ago, even shielding children can't save that monster from the Lotus counter, so the boss keeps panicking, while Tenma's finishing blow arrives anyway. Clear orb stretches to 120 meters, and the battlefield starts lying, like a cocky Queen Locust getting shredded by violet nonsense, while the boss swarm gets blasted apart, then scraps together again, and Tenma smirks through the chaos, calling the kill before impact lands. Because the reproduction gimmick finally gets exposed, right as the monster starts panicking. Its little empire collapses, the locusts throwing a tantrum after losing their queen. So Tenma turns that panic into fire, promising a brutal mama send-off. Then Lotus Burst keeps scaling absurdly, pushing every range past reason, and he treats the whole harvest like warm-up, already planning the next breakpoint, before the system flashes a new record. While Choha gets left worrying, on the barrier's edge, the blue-haired woman quietly judges his disastrous goodbye, and Tenma returns wrapped in raw power, already looking too calm for this mess. Then the red eye in the dark reminds everyone this nightmare is still watching. Meanwhile, the blue-haired commander drags a battered body through the chaos, proving adults can suffer too. The long-haired hat man keeps squeezing for answers, but that captive would rather die than snitch. Tenma snaps back at the hostage grab, turning concern into a threat they can feel. The hat man smugly laughs off the warning, which is adorable for somebody already losing. Then Tenma blitzes in with lightning, and the stage finally starts fearing him. Even the veteran flinches at that speed, because rookie is a hilariously bad label now. And the system answers with Deathhound detected. Over Mimesys active, analysis climbing. The dog is a Shikigami, and the hat guy's timing is already looking criminal, because Tenma catches the speed pattern instantly, then roasts the lost amateur logic. While the hostage stunt only proves that smug old bastard has nothing but desperation, Tenma answers with a glare and a grab, making the monster recoil like trash, and then that jaw opens wide, as if subtlety ever existed here. But the hat guy still boasts about bite force, confidently clowning himself for free, until the red-eyed stare finally cracks. Because Tenma's pressure is wrecking the act, then lightning-level movement detonates, and the beast eats a brutal counter, leaving the hound thrashing in purple pain, which is honestly embarrassing for it, because the analysis climbs to 77%, and Tenma is no longer defenseless. Under the stadium haze, Tenma's rookie aura still fools the desperate crowd, until Kodama's respawn trick gets mocked by a grotesque body that won't stay down, and that ugly mouth keeps preaching death, right before Tenma's pressure silences the bragging. As magic detection kicks on, the system finally admitting he's not normal, because the analysis keeps racing upward, and Shikigami Eater becomes his newest theft, while the blue-haired strategist watches him outpace death, sounding almost smug about it. Then the masked boss panics, realizing surprise attacks are basically dead on arrival. When his hostage stunt appears, the blue-haired woman gets used as bargaining trash, but Tenma still pushes the analysis to 100, refusing the Blue Lotus. And the reward drops anyway, boosting every stat while his copycat gift mutates. So now the Blue Lotus penalty finally drops, and Tenma smirks at the fine print, because Kodama's monstrous charge only feeds his theft, letting him snatch another Shikigami, and with analysis still climbing, he decides the whole fight is his to hijack. So when the masked thug grabs the blue-haired woman, Tenma keeps escalating anyway, while her captor's ugly bragging starts cracking apart under the pressure of his growth. Then Tenma answers with a brutal kick, turning that beast into airborne scrap, and the hostage-taker screams about experience like a clown begging to stay relevant, but the blue-haired strategist gets shoved into the crossfire, forcing everyone into panic. Even then she reassures Tenma, bleeding but composed, because drama clearly hates dying quietly, and when he raises both hands in that stage room, the whole trap feels finished. The smug hat-wearing thug blames obedience, acting cruel for leverage, but Tenma answers with cold defiance, refusing the whole stupid setup. Then Charles the Hound barges in, dragging Kinoshita Regis orders behind him, while Tenma keeps probing, already planning to meet Reiji face-to-face, and Charles threatens a battered blue-haired hostage, trying to sound dangerous, only to realize Tenma is done negotiating. And the battlefield hates his ego, because that stare alone says death is coming, and Tenma finally commits, his black wall-like pressure crushing Charles as the beast lunges uselessly. Then lightning and blue-haired leverage collide, but Tenma still holds the line, leaving Charles screaming in panic, because his master's pet just became prey. Even the beast seems satisfied, because Tenma's hunger finally stops pretending. Then he vows revenge with that terrifying calm, and the hostage leverage backfires. The long-haired lackey panics and admits Reiji's orders, suddenly desperate to survive. Tenma calls that proposal useful, while his eyes go full nightmare mode. One opening is all he needs, and the smug handler starts sweating bullets. The counterstrike lands instantly, turning the big-talking brat into a complete joke. Tenma is already ahead, saying he can kill Reiji himself without help. So the wolf stays on him and the hostage stays helpless, which is brutal. The hat-wearing coward collapses into begging, trying to buy time with apologies. But the monster only bares its teeth, and now it's clearly mealtime. The panic breaks first, and the hat-wearing lackey starts pleading. Then Tenma answers by unleashing a nightmare grin. Not mercy. The hostage angle finally clicks, and the blue-haired woman becomes leverage, while Tenma calls out the coward hiding behind monsters and excuses. So the masked pest tries bravery, except it's mostly theater, and even his smooth little denial sounds pathetic beside Tenma's glare. The blue-haired captive gets questioned, and the room realizes she's the link, but the blonde-hooded clown instantly backpedals, begging not enemy status. Tenma cuts through the noise, saying hell handle Reiji himself, and the wolf obeys while the screaming lunch keeps running. Iberia corners Tenma with praise, then fawns over his legendary knockout, while dangling jobs, money, and karma stones like cheap bait, because subtlety died young. But Tenma keeps walking toward the field, carrying that blue-haired hostage like a verdict, and the blonde-hooded clown starts bargaining compensation, proving greed really is his whole personality. So Tenma explains the rule of the wasteland, where medicine beats treasure for the injured, and the hooded boy finally gets it, flashing healing items like a miracle salesman. Except Tenma already knows the foot injury means delay, and delay means death, so he smugly answers with recovery items, turning the hostage crisis into arithmetic. Then he promises he can save her, as the blonde loses his last scrap of confidence, and Tenma's cold stare says the real monster is now the one being hunted. Tenma calmly refuses instant healing, because saving her alive matters more. Then he dismantles the blonde hooded idiots, greed with battlefield logic and medicine, and the guy stumbles into the term karma tool like it's forbidden scripture. As Tenma explains, disaster beasts laugh at guns, because of course they do, but crafted tools, ranked by materials and skill, actually hit awakened monsters hard, and now the whole system is laid out, from normal trash to rare stat boosters. Then epic and unique weapons start looking downright obscene, dripping with special effects, while crafters stay rare, insanely respected, and apparently allergic to overachieving. So the blonde brat finally asks about Tenma's father, only to hear he's no ordinary crafter, because even Tenma knows most crafters never create a unique tool in their lives. Even his father's reputation flexes hard, 3 tools tracing back there, because the crafter king of the northern continent built legends. And Tenma, still half listening, keeps getting barked at like a delinquent, while he inspects that crossbow and casually analyzes its karma mechanics, then admits the rare weapon could quietly hide his power. Convenient as hell, explaining projectiles can absorb ordinary ammo, which is almost insulting to common sense, and the tool even vanishes after linking, like it's showing off, so Tenma thanks him, then pivots straight toward Kinoshita Reiji, making the blonde realize this target is no harmless background noble, and now both of them want Reiji's head, for very different reasons. Blonde ambition crashes in fast, pitching preliminaries like some grand bargain, but Tenma instantly flips to Kinoshita Reiji, forcing the real agenda out. Because North District 4's preliminaries are Reiji's playground, and what a surprise, his family's stage monopoly makes every shortcut look embarrassingly expensive, so the blonde tries selling teamwork as destiny, while Tenma just smirks, then explains his father raised karma tools like a sacred workshop secret, meaning every finished weapon was art, and little kid Tenma ate it up, which is why he dreamed of awakening, chasing disasters with handmade karma gear, until Dad stalled him, claiming saviors only deserve those toys, and now the brat is begging for one last condition, naturally. North District 4's preliminaries start ugly, and the blonde thinks teamwork can buy survival, but Tenma coolly throws his father's warnings back, turning rejection into a flex, because the old man basically locked down karma tools, unless you earned them, leaving the kid to admit the stage is rigged, crowded, and painfully monopolized, so he pulls out the juicy rumor instead, bragging that Tenma crushed Oga Takaru, and Tenma instantly upgrades the deal, agreeing only after checking hospital priorities. Then the blonde starts naming duo ideas like a mad salesman with zero shame, while Tenma silently remembers the awakened friends and wonders who's even participating. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a random monster keeps sneezing through the chaos. Pathetic timing. And a blue-haired woman notices the cold like it's secretly Tenma's problem. Pink-haired girl fixates on Itsuka's absence, still shaken by that attack, while the smug glasses guy gets roasted for worrying instead of checking afterward. Then water erupts in training, and Tenma's abnormal calm starts humiliating everyone because even dirty ambush tactics fail when he calls it sparring and punishes openings. Next, the scarred instructor drops the tournament deadline, killing the clowning instantly, and the pink-haired student suddenly lights up, thrilled to fight real awakened opponents, while Tenma studies the crystal case, already weighing the next power move. As the red-haired noble whines about lateness and missing hound, predictably useless, karma keeps chewing him up, and the system happily feeds Tenma more experience, so now the bald shadow hunts him. While the stage game gets far nastier, Reiji smugly reports his stage score, pretending this circus went perfectly, then flaunts the last karma stone, acting like Tenma owes him admiration, but Tenma's gains keep climbing, because arrogance apparently feeds experience now, and Reiji's lightning flex gets cut off by Tenma's brutal refusal. While Tenma stands unmoved, the whole room realizing he is the real problem, his apology for Choha lands like a funeral notice, not guilt. Then the armored commander calmly offers to erase the nuisance, embarrassingly efficient. Tenma refuses help, choosing the fight himself, because modesty is overrated. Izumi agrees and demands the full story, sounding far too entertained, and the blonde newcomer finally confirms the teacher's legend, raising the stakes. Inside the recovery room, Choha casually credits Iberia's rare karma tool, and the blue-haired woman is already proving this miracle actually worked, while the blonde kid gets baited into calling her a governor's son, only to learn he's embarrassingly backward, because the rumor mill lied, and then the blonde rival hardens up, claiming the Crafter King's eldest son title, but Tenma's deadpan silence basically says, "Congratulations, you found the wrong monster," before the blonde boy spirals into apologizing and admitting Aiden was his father. Yet the armored commander stays classy, thanking Tenma and extending a visit, while Choha politely shuts it down, promising tomorrow's watch with obvious approval, and the blonde fighter finally grins, swearing hell crush the preliminaries. Even the armored commander admits Tenma made a ridiculous first impression, because that boy's trauma turns every disaster beast into a self-destruct trigger, until only nearby protectors can cool his murderous instincts, which is inconveniently heroic, and Izumi explains that strategy by placing him beside the person he shields, so the blue-haired woman instantly becomes the target of his entire soft spot, while reports spill out about the school attack being deliberate, not random. How dramatic. Plus traitors keep defecting and commander assassinations are spreading across continents, leaving the world pitch black, with Tenma apparently the only idiot bright enough to become that stubborn light of hope everyone keeps betting on, and the North District 4 preliminaries wait like the next battlefield. More spectators flood in once Izumi shows up, and the turnout explodes, because even the cocky veterans know that old monster makes uncertainty look stupid, so the last-minute stragglers get hand-tied with red ribbons like premium backup, and somehow, Izumi finally steps in to explain the preliminaries before anyone embarrasses themselves further. The venue splits into internal and external zones, with Itsuki, Iberia, and Reiji inside, while entrance rank gets tracked by bracelet, and only the top 50 survive the first stage. Reiji, naturally, acts smug about his bracelet, as if rules were made for lesser people, but the blue-haired teammate reminds Itsuki that numbers matter, and 2 karma tools are allowed, meaning the first stage is basically a speed race for ranking, not a dignified trial, and Reiji's little entourage gets marked as purchased cannon fodder right before the surprise attack. Blonde rookie freaks out, realizing the battlefield gossip hit too hard, too fast, while the black-haired kid calmly ignores the chaos, and everyone else panics, because the first stage kicks off with bracelets, rankings, and zero mercy. Izumi coolly explains the system, making Reiji's smug attitude look painfully childish. Then Tenma's absurd stats surface again, and the room collectively stares like idiots, because one level 8 survivor is already weird. But Tenma's level 21 is ridiculous. Reiji still mouths off about rookies, until Taewajin's legend gets casually dragged in, and Izumi gets pressed about that northern continent pupil who opened by killing skeletons, before the masked commander admits it's true, which somehow makes everything worse. The crowd locks onto the kid Izumi singled out, and instantly, even the commander's silence says this mystery has serious talent. Reiji's smug guesswork collapses as the stat board insults him. The blue-haired analyst narrows it down, then gets politely proven wrong. Pink hair, wood gift, level 16, everyone keeps misreading the board. Izumi cuts through the noise, and Reiji's bragging looks pathetic. Then comes the real joke, a level 0 nobody daring attendance. The room erupts when that 0 turns out to be a participant, and Tenma answers the ridicule with a stare that chills everything. Reiji's smug grin cracks, because Tenma just wrecked his little charade, and the quiet newcomer answers the challenge with terrifying confidence instead. Then comes the usual clown show, calling him trash for a level 0, while the whole entourage lunges forward, proving arrogance really is contagious, but Tenma answers with violent lightning, making their confidence look embarrassing, and even Izuma's silent presence can't save Reiji from this humiliation, because the stat readout says 3 6s and 2 7s, pathetic, yet the blonde hooded onlooker still bets Tenma can't handle 4, so Tenma reaches for that hidden trick, and the room freezes. He expected a legendary enemy, then got level 0 trash instead, so the black-haired kid answers with one cold order, move, and that smug redhead freezes the second Tenma's glare lands, which makes his entourage laugh like idiots right before panic hits, because this newcomer's attitude is so sharp, even Tenma likes it. Then the threat escalates as that rotten hand reaches for his skull, but Tenma's strike lands first, turning bravado into a messy collapse. With a single command, he leaves the arrogant fool bleeding on command, and now everyone realizes a 7-level gap means nothing to him. The level 7 rookie gets underestimated. Then that confidence starts cracking hard, because the ice-like trick leaves him untouched, and nobody can explain it. So the flame user goes full output like a total show-off, only for Tenma to stand there while the blast becomes a disaster, and suddenly the cocky level 0 joke sounds embarrassingly stupid, while his entourage realizes something is off and panic starts leaking through, as the whole arena erupts into fire, wreckage, and pure humiliation. Even the blonde hooded observer grins, already treating Tenma like a rare specimen, but Tenma wants none of this nonsense, telling the idiot to back off. And then Black Wall stacks defense again, proving this monster is still calculating. Tenma coolly threatens the repeat trick, and the room freezes, while the flaming fool panics, realizing his bravado is already rotting. Then he hurls out his strongest blaze, clearly trying to cosplay dominance, but the attack just screams louder, while Tenma stands there untouched, and now the big man's confidence cracks, because level 0 jokes age badly. Even his magic drains dry instantly, exposing that dramatic flex as paper. The entourage starts panicking, as the so-called powerhouse collapses in disbelief, but Tenma only notices Blackwall's pattern, calmly reading the weakness. Then he decides the verification's done, and moves to end this circus, while the fire user finally realizes his ultimate move got embarrassed by reality. A B-rank fire barrage erupts, and the cocky attacker looks feral, but Tenma just mocks the numbers game, while Blackwall swallows everything. The blast detonates anyway, yet the so-called powerhouse keeps getting checked, because even his genius plan to drain magic sounds pathetic in hindsight. Then that smug confidence collapses, when Tenma closes the distance instantly, and the monster learns Blackwall's passive effect only needs one trigger. So the brute tries flexing speed over power, which is adorable nonsense, while Tenma stares back like he's judging a lab rat, not a threat. Then he ends the stunt with a brutal strike that folds the guy, and the final stat readout proves the defense math was already cooked. So the genius plan backfires fast, and Tenma's lightning buffet keeps farming bonuses, while the black-eyed hunter smirks through the smoke, asking if anyone truly escapes. Then Silver Serpent detonates, swallowing the field as the idiot crowd panics harder, but Tenma barely blinks, casually noting he's crushing higher-ranked awakened like homework, and that leaves the others staring at the electrified kid, completely unable to cope, because Thunderbreaker copies Blackwall's logic, stacking only once per target, which means the so-called tough opponents are already out cold, a hilarious disaster, and even the blonde hood claims he expected a fight, then gets embarrassed, so the real question becomes what Tenma is, not who can stop him, and his smug little answer? They still don't even know what we means. Blonde bravado meets Tenma's glare, and the Northern Continent's duo dream starts wobbling, because the chase instantly turns ugly, with Tenma hauling him around like discarded luggage, and that masked clown's disbelief is priceless, since double already sounds ridiculous to him, while lightning tears through the field, leaving one smug genius apparently beaten to pulp. But then the glasses guy narrows in, already sniffing out Charla's crossbow like a thief, and he acts superior about the whole continent, as if nobody can touch the savior's prey, until speed becomes a joke, because another attacker gets past like bad homework. Then the purple storm buries a helpless man, who can only scream and regret breathing, as the exhausted brown-haired fighter questions the impossible hit, still stunned by the impact, and Reiji finally lands the verdict, swaggering on stage like consequences never apply to him. The squad is already posturing hard, babbling about stamina while trashing rookies, and the blue-haired observer clocks Reiji's arrogance like she's seen this circus before, but the mask-clad commander shuts it down, citing rules, while Reiji keeps preening, because the stage ahead is wide open now, and the crowd is buying the lie. As the gate looms closer, that smug route to the internal area looks embarrassingly easy, until lightning snaps the mood, and everybody suddenly remembers Kinoshida's name with regret. Then the red-eyed crowd realizes that level 0 rookie just bent the battlefield, and now even the loudmouths are tripping over themselves, swearing it wasn't them. While the realization finally hits the fence-sitters, level 0 means something terrifying, because Tenma and that blonde fool are not walking in as victims anymore. Reiji's panic cracks wide open, because those lost fighters were truly taken down, and his smug little explanation gets uglier, with level 0 somehow buying survival. Then the blonde idiot keeps whining, while Tenma and company refuse his whining, as the masked commander shuts down excuses and promises more disposable trouble. Naturally, Reiji still preens like a prince, until the lightning crowd calls his bluff, and the level 0 brat gets mocked, only for those bodyguards to close in, but Tenma's numbers spiral past common sense, leaving everyone staring at pure disaster, so the hooded fool starts sweating, while Tenma tells him to keep low, and the battlefield detonates into blue lightning, making the crowd forget their courage, while Reiji finally stiffens, realizing this trash just rewrote the whole fight. Tenma's lightning launch wrecks the arrogant blonde fool, and the room freezes. Reiji and his backup get boxed in, while the blonde's confidence evaporates. Tenma calmly shuts down the whining, then raises the stakes with murderously steady resolve. He makes it clear nobody's escaping, and suddenly the room belongs to him. Pink-haired Choha drags herself to 4th place, cursing the red ribbon sabotagers. Hikaru's smug panic collapses next, as lightning humiliates his speed fantasy. Uegaku lands third, still offended, while Akagami Shion claws into second. And then Hanyu Kana sits first, absurdly calm, level 16 and untouchable. The pink-haired girl and the goggled idiot realize Tenma never fought alone. Then the Iberia ranking flips again, and Choha hits the floor in shock. Itsuka's name cracks through the barrier chamber, and panic spreads, because even the Gossip Brigade can't believe that absurd awakening, as the black-cloaked silhouette proves the rookie is already infamous, while Tenma calmly declares nobody's leaving, no matter how cute the denial, and the commanders start obsessing over Reiji. Like that's the real problem. Then the blue-haired strategist orders backup, just before Tenma's pressure tightens, shocking even the veterans, who admit his speed is downright unreal, as the blood-red commander watches the stage get completely overrun, and suddenly the whole thing isn't a duel, but total subjugation, meaning this battle is really a 100-on-1 execution. The rookie's pressure explodes in flame, turning the whole stage into a warning, while Tenma's cold stare basically says, Choha is priority, not your pathetic ranking game. Then Reiji's little tantrum orders a mob attack, because subtlety clearly died here, but the blue-haired strategist has already called reinforcements, just as the veterans stagger under his speed, and the blood-red commander watches helplessly, realizing this duel became a public execution, as Tenma drives in, snarling confidence and a fire punch that humiliates every loudmouth nearby. The smug lightning user gets folded instantly, which is honestly the only believable outcome, and the crowd starts pretending numbers matter, as if 50 amateurs can outmuscle Doom. Yet Blackwall swallows the fire skill cleanly, proving his defense is already absurd. Then Lotus Burst blooms, and Tenma decides to end this farce with brutal finality. Tenma's firestorm tears through the mob, turning bravado into ash instantly, and Hikaru, bless his ego, realizes that was absolutely Tenma's skill, while the red-haired brute panics at the blast, because subtlety clearly died here. The blue-haired strategist stays frozen, silently clocking that this monster can swallow explosions, and the commander's face says it all. Tenma's output is obscene, not accidental, because even the veterans can't believe he's bending skills outside his own job. Now, the black-haired threat feels inevitable, with way too many trump cards hiding underneath. As bodies litter the cracked ground, and the survivors learn 30% was restraint, that leaves only one opponent standing, trembling under Tenma's cold, flawless stare, and the last loudmouth finally realizes over 100 people got erased, fast. He calls out the first betrayal with icy fury, ready to repay the hurt, while the Kinoshita heir smugly flexes stage control like he owns the planet, then hurls a B-rank lightning cannon, acting tough right before reality embarrasses him, because Overmimesis instantly copies it, and the analysis gauge barely crawls. Tenma slips through the blast, leaving the governor's brat looking spectacularly doomed, and that so-called level gap collapses fast when the attacker starts panicking, with him shrieking for 40 to hurry over, like backup fixes humiliation. But even the rules don't matter anymore. Since appearances are already shredded, the red-haired fool still boasts about a level 35 ally, tearing Tenma apart. Yet Hitten lands cleanly, and the smug nightmare finally starts breaking. Magic detection freaks out as Tenma closes in, analysis crawling at 19%. And it is not just one target, because the whole field is screaming danger. Tenma's presence cuts through the storm, while the first blow lands like a joke, and the poor stage bully gets buried fast, looking about as impressive as wet cardboard. Then the lightning-brained clown tries posturing, but his lifeline is already collapsing, because even his family name can't save him from getting folded in public. Reiji's smug fear turns ugly as Tenma answers with clean, merciless efficiency, leaving the commander stunned and the blue-haired observer quietly realizing this is unprecedented. Word spreads instantly that Tenma crushed Kinoshita Reiji, and everyone starts staring differently, while analysis hits 99%, because his reset trick is about to matter. Itsuki's name cuts through the rain, and the whole field freezes, because that calm face has become the one thing nobody can ignore. The pink-haired girl begs everyone to move, already bracing for disaster, while Itsuka's internal rank flashes 7th, as if fate is showing off. Then the crowd erupts around him, desperate, relieved, and embarrassingly loud, and one blonde loudmouth starts sniffing around his partner, like a bad joke. Iberia steps in, claiming the title of Itsuka's partner with smug confidence, which instantly triggers jealous accusations, because apparently friendship is now treason. The blonde clown keeps grilling them over duo names, sounding absurdly serious, until the answer lands cleanly, and yes, of course they already have one. Blonde arrogance lands like a brick, and the duo name somehow takes center stage. The mocking crowd laughs, until the boring answer hits back with perfect confidence. Then the second stage announcement drops over the arena, cold and absolute. Because the trial sends everyone into disaster beasts alone for 1 hour. That rule turns the blonde chatter into startled panic, while Tenma stays unreadable, beside a smug veteran who clearly enjoys watching rookies sweat for sport. Their rankings flash across the lineup, and Tenma's 7th place looks absurdly low, inside that towering venue, where the whole crowd suddenly feels hunted instead of special. Even the banter gets darker, as level 0 becomes a terrible little obsession, and Tenma's real strength stays sealed, which is exactly the scary part. So now the class clowns are reminding Tenma, because secret ranks always ruin confidence, and the whole elite lineup is already assembled, with Izumi looming there like a walking catastrophe, while blonde pretty boy confidence cracks fast, as the veteran's presence makes him sweat instead, because that legendary crowd includes Fujiwara, Hita Nakira, and Izumi Nento, just casually flexing history. Then the briefing starts, and the silver-haired commander spells out the second stage rules, where disaster beasts spawn, kill points scale by difficulty, and beginners get thrown to the wolves. 1-minute breaks sound generous until the timer drops, turning survival into a garbage speed marathon, so Oishi gets cocky and aims straight for Nightmare class, because arrogance loves embarrassing itself publicly. Then Tenma finally speaks up, and the room instantly notices his ridiculous level 0, which leaves everyone wondering how it carried nobody past stage 1 at all. The commander coolly invites questions, and the room's bravest egos immediately take the bait, while veteran faces like Fujiwara and Hiten Akira make that confidence look adorable. Then the level 0 clown starts mocking Nightmare class, proving arrogance still runs on fumes, and the commander shuts him down, explaining disaster beasts have no real ceiling, which sends the smug black-haired kid into panic mode, because thinking past level 10 is pointless, since every prelim point carries into the main tournament, turning today into a brutally expensive audition. So the pink-haired girl and the others finally realize these numbers can make or break everything. Then Tenma quietly absorbs Taewajin's 115,000-point legend, and decides he needs this window badly. As everyone is ordered into the trial grounds, the giant arena looms like a funeral for beginners, and just like that, the second stage begins, with Tenma walking in like trouble wearing a school uniform. Those glowing eyes belong to disaster beasts, and they're already hunting, while Tenma steps into beginner class hell, finally allowed to fight back. Then Black Wall snaps open, because finishing fast beats dying stylishly. Above the arena, the blue-haired analyst keeps monitoring him like a lab rat, and the long-haired observer decides Tenma is the real spectacle here, so the commander points out the obvious. Disaster beasts are big but weak. Tenma cashes in that logic instantly, erasing the pack in 1 second, which leaves the silver-haired veteran sweating over how impossible that looked, but the smug explanation lands clean. Level 8 is where killing gets serious, and then a salamander-class monster appears, staring down Tenma like fresh meat. Against a level 8 salamander, the crowd already wrote Tenma off, yet the whole arena shifts gears, as adults scramble to multi-screen chaos, while the commander calmly notes most contestants are still beginner-class filler, except the pink-haired girl, who keeps torching monsters while dragging the pace forward, and the blue-haired analyst confirms Tenma Itsuki is the only real threat, because even she can see his current state is going sideways fast. When the salamander's flames swallow the battlefield, everyone panics like experts on cue. Then the veterans admit brute forcing that inferno was dumb, and Tenma should have dodged, but Black Wall answers first, turning fire into a joke with teeth, and the salamander meets Tenma's counterstrike head-on, which is where arrogance dies. The salamander's scales glow like a furnace, spitting panic across the arena, but Tenma cuts through the blast, and the system quietly pays him, while the veterans finally admit he should have dodged. Genius-level hindsight. Except Black Wall eats the fire alive, humiliating the overconfident beast, and Tenma's stats keep climbing, because apparently survival is his favorite training method, so he even considers skipping the break, just to test the next disaster. As Izumi explains, this stage demands speed and combat sense, nothing flashy. Then the lightning rhino arrives, literally weaponizing electricity like a smug monster, and its horn turns the whole lesson into a brutal risk check, because to beat it, Tenma needs brains, speed, and one perfect strike. The veterans panic, because Tenma's next move looks stupidly reckless, yet the lightning rhino charges in, and he sizes up its horn. He treats that glowing horn like a perfect defense-testing target, while the beast answers with raw lightning, thinking it owns the room. Then the strike lands, and the monster gets blasted into ugly silence, sending the armored commander sprawling as the air practically rattles. Blue-haired Choha gasps at Tenma's unpredictability, while Izumi stays eerily calm, because the results are ridiculous, and the beast's damage barely registers. Even after absorbing thunder, Tenma just keeps smiling through the smoke, and now has ready to settle this, with monstrous confidence. Thunderbreaker finally detonates, gifting Tenma absurd agility and swagger, as the lightning beast answers with smug force, thinking it still matters. Then the hit connects, and the monster gets blasted into silence, while Tenma cashes in 7 seconds flat, the scoreboard looking embarrassed. Inside the control room, the old-timers are already sweating his speed, because he's faster than their youth and still hiding full power, so Tenma studies the beast's brutal claws and chain-spitting mouth next, plus that ridiculous armored shell, a nightmare made for show-offs to panic. Izumi coolly labels it the preliminary strongest disaster, which is adorable, and right on cue, Clear Orb activates, because the bullying isn't over. Purple Clear Orb lightning tears through the monster, and its smug body collapses. Tenma cashes in the kill instantly, while the scoreboard starts sweating. The old control room veterans freeze at his speed, because youth clearly failed them. Tenma studies the beast's claws and mouth, preparing to bully the next one. Izumi calls it the preliminary strongest disaster. Then Clear Orb keeps climbing. The next target gets erased in 3 seconds, earning points like a joke. Kodama's regeneration turns pathetic, while Tenma steals progress toward normal class. Reiji keeps talking stage nonsense, but Tenma's momentum embarrasses every loudmouth there. A rare support user restores magic, and the last clear shoots to full. Nightmare class finally folds, and Tenma takes first place without breaking a sweat. Pink Hair finally spots Itsuki, while the smug crowd starts panicking, because Tenma walks into the chaos like the problem already begged him, and the veterans freeze when the level 15 Inferno Giant gets deleted, while Izumi smirks and cranks the nightmare difficulty higher for sport, but Tenma only notices the beast keeps multiplying, like bad math, so he tears through Kodama's regenerating body and keeps climbing anyway. Then the Clear Orb goes live, and the monster's advantage starts melting. 1 clean hit later, the Inferno Giant collapses, and the speed stat rockets, leaving even the white-haired commander rattled, because that sphere feels endless, and Izumi quietly admits the power is real, just hideously flawed. The Inferno Giant towers over Tenma, roaring like a disaster with legs. Izumi mocks the speed, but Tenma is already reading its ugly rhythm. The veterans explain giant stats while the commander tests his own nightmare toys. Tenma answers with black-purple force, and the monster finally learns panic. Clear Orb ignites, stripping away the giant's advantage, like cheap stage props. Izumi coolly notes the giant's body cheats, but only in bulk, not speed. The beast still lunges, a level 15 tank with embarrassing mobility issues. Tenma sidesteps it cleanly, and even the monster looks personally offended. The crowd realizes the black ball hits hard, yet travels like bad gossip. So the next move is obvious: keep outrunning it or stay stuck. Tenma's black-purple power tears through the arena, and the floor groans. Then the blast detonates wide, leaving nothing but a cratered punchline, because from mid-range, even that monster can still be dodged, and the old veteran admits it only works if you ignore common sense, so of course Tenma grins, already planning to close the distance. Then Thunderbreaker ignites, turning the battlefield into a lightning crime scene, while the monster claws forward and still somehow gets outrun, embarrassing itself. As the shockwaves keep stacking, the whole arena starts looking doomed. The blue-haired analyst freezes, realizing this kid's growth is ridiculous, and even the commander warns that 1 clean hit could end everything. The room freezes when the old veteran spots trouble and mutters for everyone to hold on, because that strike looked monstrous. But useless power is still just fancy noise, and right on cue, the monster's armored fist slams down like a cheap disaster, yet the beast is already cracking, because Tenma's pressure keeps turning attrition into humiliation. Then the battlefield gets louder as the commander's warning lands, and the tension spikes, while that red-eyed brute keeps lunging, somehow still pretending this isn't going badly, before Tenma answers with violet lightning, shredding the thing's momentum like a joke, and the kid's face goes feral, making the monster look increasingly less like a threat. As another brutal hit carves through the core, the whole fight starts collapsing. Then the system finally admits it, and Tenma's Clear Orb speed rockets absurdly higher. 12 seconds later, the monster's ruined shell gets scoreboarded into embarrassment. And of course, Choha celebrates Tenma like he didn't just rewrite Panic itself. Her overprotective speech turns hilariously mushy, while everyone else stares at the miracle. Even the commander's smug commentary goes silent, because Tenma's growth is getting ridiculous. Izumi explains the dodge, casually exposing how the kid read the attack already. Then the speed theory hits hard, electricity flooding Tenma and making reactions unfairly fast. The battlefield barely keeps up, as his purple power starts deleting every opening. The commander admits 2 wins still came with nasty risks, which is almost polite. But Tenma's real target is bigger, the strongest title and Taewajin's throne, obviously. And just when he tries to keep moving, exhaustion crashes in, because evolution hurts. Nightmare Phase 3 opens, and Tenma's first target is a 15,000-point Inferno Giant. Then Clear Orb lights up and deletes 1 monster in a single purple blast. While the long-haired observer smugly admits Tenma keeps choosing pain, like that's impressive, and the silver-haired commander deadpans that even this idiot skipped straight to Phase 4, because Tenma's physical base only reached Phase 3. Yet he's still forcing miracles. Then the giant gets shredded, as Tenma's lightning-clad body turns speed into humiliation, leaving the commander to praise his adaptation, since the kid instantly learned the opening, and the next read is brutal, thunder-boosting agility so he can get behind it. Before the second kill lands, Clear Orb's flight speed exploding to absurd levels, while Tenma coolly faces the third one, already sounding way too dangerous. The battlefield is already collapsing under Tenma's red-eyed, monster-level pressure, and the grotesque giant is getting carved up like it forgot its own name. Then the silver-haired commander realizes the kid's somehow already reading Phase 4, because Tenma answers the threat with Lotus Burst and pure, vicious confidence, and the so-called unstoppable beast gets erased before it can even posture, while the system spits out a pathetic victory screen, boosting his skills again. 13 seconds later, the score lands, and the whole room stays speechless, because that first stage nightmare was exactly the technique that flattened the crowd. Then Tenma checks his drained magic and looks one enemy away from chaos, but the passive recovery kicks in, so the disaster keeps feeding his comeback. Nightmare Phase 4 drops in, and Tenma's magic starts clawing back, absurdly, while the silver-haired commander admits only that kid clears this nightmare. Naturally, then Tenma's Clear Orb keeps speeding up, turning dodge timing into a joke, and every boost sharpens his accuracy, because apparently mercy was never invited. He realizes range is for amateurs, so more flight speed means cleaner kills, but the monster's magic is draining too, making every missed move costlier, until the iron chains finally snap the beast's confidence, real dramatic damage, and Tenma notices even that red-eyed menace is reacting, which is rich, because the giant's armor starts peeling under chain punishment, all swagger gone. Then the final strike lands, and Phase 4 looks embarrassingly finished. Clear Orb goes feral here, and the monster's guard gets deleted instantly, but even Tenma's stance starts slipping, because brute force alone won't finish this, so he shifts faster. Carving through the opening like range was a bad joke, and the beast's armor finally caves in. All that swagger peeled away, with chains and blades ripping deeper. The so-called unstoppable giant looks embarrassingly mortal. Tenma stands wrecked in the dust, breathing hard while the battlefield keeps screaming. Then the old commander finally snaps, ordering help. Because watching this disaster is enough, Tenma realizes his limit mid-glare, sweat and shock hitting at the same time, but the answer comes anyway, as he remembers this exact feeling from before, and the next idiot rushes in just as Tenma lunges back to help. Tenma still refuses to fold, and the room feels it. Izumi and the others beg action, because stalling now means death. The commander reads the fight perfectly, sensing Tenma hiding a trump card. That confidence cracks, because Tenma's eyes look horribly beyond surrender. This isn't despair, it's the glare of someone already choosing war. So he finally spends everything, forcing over mimesis to keep up. Lightning erupts as the copied skill pushes him past normal limits, but Tenma stops at 99%, refusing the final overcommit. Then the analysis completes anyway, and Thunderbreaker gets upgraded. Even Izumi reels, because that blue lotus is definitely not ordinary. The blue-haired woman spots Choha smiling, and instantly smells trouble. Then Tenma's new Thunderbreaker turns lightning into pure momentum. The masked nightmare reels under his latest absurdly efficient strike, so he declares warm-up over, because apparently humility died today. Izumi watches the stat surge and realizes this kid is disgusting. Inferno Giant falls, while Clear Orb keeps cranking his speed higher. Stage after stage crumbles, and Tenma clears Nightmare class in seconds. Kodama gets carved open again, as Purple Light refuses mercy. By Phase 5, the points stack up like insult on insult, and Phase 6 gets obliterated, with Tenma still dangerously accelerating. The room freezes as startled adults watch Tenma's awakening crush dignity, while the Inferno Nightmare writhes under another absurdly efficient punishment, and even the monster starts wondering which bastard is actually human, because Tenma keeps carving through hell like this is a warm-up. Then smug stage control gets tapped once, and Reiji's whole flex dies. As the Inferno Giants collapse in a bloody heap, mission officially humiliated. The crowd panics, realizing every prepared monster just got embarrassingly erased, while chained Tenma casually questions the so-called impossible ceiling, mocking the difficulty, then checks his points, acting like mass extinction was a decent side hustle, before praising Clear Orb's speed boost, because apparently Overkill had bonuses. A purple wake tears the trial road apart, like reality got outrun, while Tenma stands inside blue chaos, looking annoyingly untouched for once. He remembers the ambush, then dryly admits the real threat slipped his mind. Turns out every kill becomes Karma Stone, because he cannot level up, and the crowd loses it over that blue crystal spawning in a trial, while the gray-haired veteran explains Tenma Hog's all-dropped experience, making even monsters admit this kid being human is the only mercy. So Tenma claims his job is finished, then walks off smugly. The vault answers with a sharp metallic seal, locking behind him, and everyone outside finally realizes he's out, which is somehow worse. Tenma Itsuki clears the second stage in absurd time, and the system laughs back with rank 1. Then Izumi Nento strolls in, calls him pure potential, and offers mentorship. Tenma politely declines, already claiming a teacher, while Izumi keeps selling himself anyway. Tenma shuts that pitch down again, because desperate praise just makes the man look clingier. When Kinoshita Reiji's name gets dragged in, the smug stage guy instantly starts sweating. Izumi admits the disciple is his after all, and Reiji nearly malfunctions on contact. Tenma thanks him for earlier help, dropping the bomb that Izumi is his teacher. Reiji stands there like an unpaid intern, as the whole room processes that reveal. Izumi shrugs off the miracle, saying a freak like Tenma naturally becomes his pupil. Choha watches, utterly wrecked, while Tenma stands there like this chaos was scheduled. Tenma's already wearing the aftermath like a badge, smugly calling it a short rest, while Izumi flatters himself, insisting this monster growth somehow proves his disciple theory. Then he starts comparing stages like a salesman desperate to sound wise, and Tenma shuts the whole pitch down, reminding everyone the trial is still dragging on, because hard-class beasts are folding fast, and one poor challenger is done, while another keeps trapping a nightmare in water, only to run dry anyway. Izumi decides that means these two are top tier, which is adorable arrogance, but he also explains most participants never even clear normal class. So relax, and when Tenma asks why anyone is still here, Izumi drops the rule. Unless they're badly injured, nobody leaves, and Tenma is the exception. Even the Shikigami user Akagami Shion making it this far is impressive too, because the complete form drops in like a nightmare with jaws bared, and Tenma keeps carving through it anyway, which is honestly rude, while Choha admits Shikigami can transform, and that stunned everyone, since Tenma treats that mystery like bonus loot and keeps feeding XP, because the others already retired, and now he is done lingering too, so his attention snaps to Iberia, where even the armor gets mocked. Then the epic Karma tool appears, absurdly overpowered and owner-bound, because it stacked strange bonuses, but only for 15 minutes, naturally, meaning Tenma has to finish fast, before the penalty ruins everything. The Nightmare class cleared first, and Itsuka's name hit like a thunderclap, while the others kept brawling, because apparently teamwork means surviving his monster problem. Then the black-haired kid got praised in passing, looking annoyingly composed for once, as the second stage wrapped up, and the whole system finally stopped pretending. With only the top 10 advancing, everyone else suddenly became decorative background noise, and the smug point hoarder started dreaming about rewards, because greed is a hobby, until the commander calmly announced the ranking, like disaster paperwork with manners. Then the board flashed its ridiculous top 10, and Tenma completely owned it, leaving the crowd gawking at his 100,000-plus score, as if numbers had betrayed them, while Reiji lost his mind over third place, because his ego couldn't take reality. That teal-haired swordsman finally sizes up Tenma, while the pink-haired girl panics beside him, because the prelims are done, the rankings are out, and Tenma's name detonates nationwide. Even the masked patriarch figure feels the shift, smugly sensing humanity's shiny new dawn, and the number lands like a slap, over 100,000, shocking everyone awake, while the blonde kid lies there realizing Tenma didn't just win, he embarrassed destiny too. Then the black-haired monster finishes the beast, and casually admits Tenma surprised him, which leaves the spiral-eyed newcomer grinning like a clown who somehow survived the apocalypse. As the tournament arena stands revealed, a giant wrecked stage under the Salvation League banner, and the commander wraps it up, announcing the prelims ended cleanly. Like that was normal, while far off in South District 1, the elites already brace for what Tenma brings. Dawn summons the squad to mock some old prophet, and immediately, Balgar's peaceful legend lands harder than their whining ever could, because the barrier timing is late, so the prophecies already look suspicious. Yet the North Commander's limits still matter, no matter how smug they sound. Even so, the old man's 1 in 10 visions keep everyone sweating, until the discussion snaps to the North's danger, with disaster beasts closing in, and one of those beasts has already made becoming over level 100 look pathetic, while the forest stirs as Tenma stats keep climbing past reason, his total finally blasting over 1500. Like Destiny got bullied, and the level up bonus follows with 50 more points, because of course it does. With 1500 stats, Tenma's already clowning a normal awakened, and the passive bonuses keep inflating everything, because subtlety died here. He even asks for a method, then gets fed his favorites like royalty, while the pink-haired girl stalls him, acting casual over impossible growth. Dinner turns into prophecy talk, and Tenma shrugs off the spotlight again. Then the northern continent's sleeping seer gets dragged into the discussion. Choha reports he healed up, but he's still drained and unconscious. So the smug adult finally admits a nightmare class clear only happened here, which makes the pink-haired girl panic, until someone points behind him, because the red-eyed shadow is back, and arrogance just met trouble. The red-eyed nightmare comes begging for food, and that's adorable. Instead of fear, he gets a royal feast, because apparently monsters get pampered too. Reiji tries posturing, but the blonde intruder wrecks his seat and his dignity. The brat flinches, then still clutches the bowl like he owns the room. He even calls it delicious, which is humiliating for everyone with standards. Reiji smugly credits his cooking, and the blonde turns into an unpaid hype man. The chef for a day gets praised so hard, even the pink-haired girl looks trapped. Then the armored commander cuts in, asking what these future heroes fear most. The masked giant wants the opposite of hope, and the table goes silent. Reiji answers with dreams of saviors and gourmet travel, while Destiny smirks. An elderly ego machine lectures about aging, while Hikaru's pride starts sweating, because even his tiny panic says this roast landed harder than his stats. Then the pink-haired girl casually opens up, and somehow makes trauma sound polite. Since hospitals, sickness, and fear turned her childhood into one long nightmare, so now even a sneeze looks criminal, and Tenma's existence feels contagious, while she links that terror to his background, then unleashes a feast-worthy disaster. But the masked giant declares awakened life beats illness, and fear should pack up, so the blonde intruder nervously asks for his turn, pretending he isn't next, yet he confesses his real terror was failing preliminaries, which is hilarious now, because what scares him most is not fighting beside Itsumi, and that's telling. Blonde nerves crack first, as they demand Itsuka's deepest fear, and the crowd starts clowning him for possibly having none at all. But his answer lands heavy, dragging up orphaned anxiety and dead parents. Then the despair spiral turns feral, with helplessness, anger, sadness, hunger, until Saya and Rikuru drag him back from that black hole, and the pink-haired girl practically mends him with soup, snacks, and brutal kindness, because even Tenma admits their warmth yanked him out of darkness, after which he remembers Sensei, Choha, and Iberia entering his world, plus that absurd family dinner, where security finally felt real for once, and Tenma ends smiling, greedy for that safety to never vanish. The room hangs on Tenma's confession, terrified of ending up alone, while Choha calls his new calm strangely peaceful, almost dangerous, and the blonde, clingy idiot practically vows to glue himself there, just as the mentor starts warning saviors that regret is poison. Then the red mask decree turns sacrifice into the whole disgusting point, so the armored authority orders the party to eat, rest, and move. And by morning the blonde is already begging for homemade meals again, when Tenma gets hit with that awkward Rikuru question, and freezes. Then he tries to walk it off, dodging straight into the tournament, until one name slips out, Choha, and the whole mood snaps. Why the rush? She asks, already sensing this mess is personal, and the answer lands ugly. Top secret South Continent intel. Naturally, the clearance rules are absurd, because apparently danger needs paperwork, yet Izumi trusts only those two, which is terrifyingly generous. Then Choha drops Elder Balgar's prophecy, and the room chills, because his predictions hit like confirmed futures, not guesses, so she pushes evacuation, admitting disaster beasts may want her, and Izumi agrees, saying hell stay and be the bait. Tenma still tries to protect his teacher, while Choha rejects panic, but Izumi has already decided, and tells Tenma not to argue. Aiden's value is absurdly high, so the first order is full-body babysitting, while the old man frets over splitting forces, because apparently loyalty needs logistics. Then Izumi orders evacuation and elite defense, turning panic into battlefield paperwork, because the prophecy says a disaster beast is coming, and nobody gets to pretend otherwise. The pink-haired girl stays strangely polite, then admits Aiden needs protection immediately, and Choha answers with that tired genius look, like she already read the massacre, since Tenma's power may still be hidden, but his presence alone changes every strategy, so she pushes him away from the front, and he gets the most dangerous promotion possible, with Tenma's methods baiting exposure. The commander chooses secrecy over heroics, because if Aiden is the lure, then Tenma is the real monster they're preparing for. An impossible artifact blooms on his stats, and the system starts panicking, while the northern continent gets pelted by stone monuments like bad prophecy, because the route to the house is still a brutal 100 kilometers, and everyone already knows a disaster beast could crash in any second. Then the blonde guide spots Tenma, hurling urgency at him like a lifeline, since that drifting monument is exactly the thing they were fearing. Apparently, and once it lands, the attack officially begins over the city, sending civilians and hunters staring up at a sky that hates them, with Tenma realizing evacuees are still trapped in the middle of it. So the grim verdict lands: massive casualties if the beast arrives now. A barrier starts blooming over the city, and nobody's thrilled. Tenma weighs civilians against the mission, because disaster loves bad timing. The blonde guide panics harder, begging help as the beast closes in. Tenma clocks the body count, then accepts the plan shift without drama. The flame golem crashes down, and that easy win fantasy gets roasted. Its firestorm keeps chewing through the street, because subtlety is dead. Tenma sizes up the levels, smugly betting the trio can still win. The bald commander throws up rock shield, barking for formation to hold. Flames slam the front line, while Tenma orders a clean counterattack. The monster lands harder, and the rescue starts turning into war. The corridor goes silent, and even the monster looks genuinely horrified, because its highest defense ally is already dead, which is embarrassing timing, so the whole squad panics, while Tenma studies the math and refuses panic. Then the flames explode across the street, turning their confident rescue plan into ash, but Tenma spots the stats, and starts treating this disaster like a warm-up, as the water user panics, begs for mercy, and fires a reckless counter, only for the beast to reappear behind him, making his victory speech look hilarious. While the trio braces together, convinced they can still finish the job, yet Tenma shuts down the glory-hogging and claims the kill himself, and the fire monster answers by rising again, because arrogance always gets punished. The street detonates in flames, and everybody instantly realizes rescue just got ugly. Then Tenma's black wall bites into the blaze, making the experts look cute, because the kid studies the monster like a problem, while others panic theatrically. The hooded blonde tries organizing civilians, and Tenma quietly claims the fight anyway, so the smug survivors start talking big, until the masked danger forces perspective. Then the blonde fumes at being rescued by a kid, which is priceless, honestly. As the crowd notices his weird ice armor, and starts whispering up a storm, Tenma remembers his master's warning about the black sphere, slow but devastating, so he holds it as a trump card, while the enemy starts sweating. And the lesson lands hard: use absolute power sparingly, or get embarrassed. A single strike tears through the beast, turning its armor into screaming debris, and the system announces Thunderbreaker, as if this disaster needed a label, because the monster still charges back, only for another blow to fold it inward, until the hulking thing buckles under non-stop thunder, flame, and pure humiliation. Onlookers finally lose their minds, calling the boy a level 0 monster, then a cheat, while admitting that even elite hunters couldn't track his speed, which is embarrassing for them, and the flame golem comparison only makes the gap look even uglier, as the crowd stares, wondering where that so-called kid vanished after the victory. Then everyone blames the blonde guide for barely surviving beside this freakish rookie, and the final verdict lands hard. Level 0 apparently can bully level 30. Tenma's stats are climbing again, and he's already hunting for more attack power, while the prophecy clock ticks on, and his speed still leaves the blonde guide humiliated. That same guide can only wheeze out surprise, then smugly offers a method anyway, and of course the method is rich kid nonsense, because his dad's warehouse supposedly has everything, so Tenma gets imagined in artifact gear, and the rookie suddenly sounds dangerously interested, which makes the blonde clerk act all confident, promising a useful relic once they arrive. But Tenma keeps cutting through the chase, and even the guide admits his speed is absurd. Then the black-haired monster snaps him back to reality, refusing to babysit an overexcited amateur, and before the blonde can recover, Tenma vanishes through the street like a cheat code. By 11:05, the night calms down, but everyone involved is still catching up to embarrassment. Finally, Tenma reaches the woods, already acting like exhaustion is for amateurs, while the blonde guide complains the countryside is safer, yet craftier enough for traps, because the old man's house is basically bait, packed with magical detection nonsense, so the guide promises safety if Tenma sticks close, which is adorable optimism, but Tenma ignores the sales pitch and keeps sensing trouble like a living alarm, then nearly steps into the trap anyway, proving confidence and competence are not cousins. As the guide panics over his own mistake, Tenma questions the house's legitimacy, and the warnings get uglier once the magical fluctuation spikes into something nasty, because the humanoid artifact is a hulking iron golem with absurd stats, leaving Tenma staring at it like, wow, this idiot brought backup too. The guide's precious safe route becomes a giant iron death trap, and Tenma keeps moving anyway, dragging the pace past everyone's comfort. Then the humanoid artifact gets slammed aside, like some overpriced scrap toy, because even its attack power outclasses him, which is just humiliating, so he hunts the karmic stone instead. While the guide spills panic, and once the weakness is exposed, that glowing chest starts looking very fragile. Tenma snaps into lightning speed, turning analysis into pure battlefield disrespect. The artifact counters hard, but his timing keeps slipping through its armor. Every collision shakes the forest, yet he keeps forcing the giant backward. Then the final strike lands on the core, and the monster folds. The so-called unbeatable golem gets swatted aside like overpriced junk, and Tenma just stands there, holding the core like he owns the nightmare, while his blonde guide panics, realizing this easy route is already ruined. Because Tenma slips past the opening and leaves the whole ambush eating dust, the artifact's hidden body then gets exposed, and suddenly the chest looks fragile, but the guide still babbles, as Tenma keeps matching every counter with colder timing. Then the bigger adults start looming in, trying to sound informed for once, yet the old white-haired seer only deepens the tension with that unreadable silence, and the blonde fool celebrates his team like destiny cares about his little club, until Tenma proves he can pick any nightmare and still rank fourth. The smug guide instantly realizes this mission is already going sideways, badly, because Tenma takes the hit, then leaves his ridiculous complaint hanging there, while the elder still barks over the dragon gear like a rent collector, and Tenma answers by calling the artifact trash, then strolling off anyway, which is hilarious, since the supposed warning just gets tossed into the dirt. Then the old seer steps in, calmly asking if Izuma's student is the one here, and Tenma finally confirms it, casually mentioning the North's coming calamity, making the veteran squint at him like this kid is somehow worth choosing, before everyone freezes at the fixed-level reveal, because wait, that's illegal. And there it is, Tenma Itsuki, human, level 0, order breaker. The old man needles Tenma about a karma artifact, and gets casually brushed off, while he lectures on rewards and masters, then admits Izumi ordered the protection, which prompts the seer's gossip about a traded artifact, and Tenma's polite refusal, except the veteran starts calling him a failure. And Tenma's face says that's bold, because the device was built to overfeed attack power, then flashes absurd critical perfection, until the crystal suddenly fractures, and the old man's expression turns from smug to nervous. Since the rank becomes unknown, a broken effect appears, and the joke lands on him, and he finally admits the relic suits a never-leveling freak, which is adorable, because every monster kill will stack the crit toward tenfold destruction. His critical crystal is broken, and the verdict is hilariously petty. The relic still suits him, because low attack never stopped Tenma. While the artifact's creator pretends this disaster was somehow noble, then a clash detonates nearby, and smug confidence gets launched out. The fool named Oishi Hikaru is left scrambling, absolutely cooked, because the barrier itself has gone feral, and everyone's screaming now. The green dome screams impossible, so even the blonde brat panics, as the gray-haired elder narrows his eyes, suspecting only top commanders knew this. Then the warning lands. Calamitous beasts are coming, so Tenma braces. Tenma senses calamity closing in, and his calm finally turns razor-sharp, because the horde spikes from 6 to 8, and that's ugly, so he meets the first demon head-on. Like the rookie joke was over, then Black Ice Wall snaps up, a desperate flex with teeth, and the monster gets shredded anyway, proving it picked the wrong kid, since Lotus Explosion could erase this entire pack in one smug blink, but Tenma spots Jusuke and Iberia behind him, conveniently ruining the fantasy, so he checks the trap, the shockwave path, and everyone's survival odds, then holds back the blast. Because saving fools is apparently his problem. Alone in the ruin, Tenma decides solitude suits his monstrous growth best, because each fresh mana surge only proves the battlefield keeps feeding him harder, and the next two-horned beast learns, spectacularly, that bragging rights are useless here, while the demon realm confirms the first wave was already shipped to humans. Then the hidden eye in the dark marks a certain human as priority prey, so one of the 8 demon kings, Enma Raku, gets handed the operation, but even he worries a Demon King-class brawler might ruin that precious eye, meaning the command gets kicked upstairs to Enshokuma, because trust is apparently a luxury, and that last monster finally charges in, looking fed up enough to eat somebody. Iberia's alarm tears through camp, and everyone fears a beast broke in, until the first disaster-class guardian crashes down like bad news with muscles, while Tenma calmly reads the ugly numbers, then risks a forbidden option, because that horned monster keeps advancing, so he trusts his own math, and the broken crystal rewards him with stupid critical power. Naturally, so Clear Orb fires, his rate creeps up, and the monster stiffens, then he orders the cleanup, leaving the disaster beast to his backup, as one hunter darts off, crackling past cabins like panic with purpose, but the blonde idiot's confidence evaporates when Dragon Gear refuses to help, and the beast finally bites him, forcing a desperate plea for rescue. Inside the ruin, the old man keeps mocking the disaster beast's confidence, then its ugly face caves in, and the whole thing looks pathetic, because Tenma sends the veteran after it, buying himself a clean exit, while Black Ice Wall erupts, and the beast suddenly starts panicking, as the commander finally arrives, cutting through the chaos like authority itself, and the outside goes quiet, meaning the barrier has swallowed every trace, leaving only shredded monsters, stunned witnesses, and one very overconfident survivor, because the veteran warns this mess will keep spawning worse disaster beasts, unless someone destroys the barrier, so Tenma volunteers with terrifying certainty, and then he promises to wipe every beast out himself. Those eyes belong to a veteran who smells Tenma's battle-hungry madness, so he hands barrier duty to the kid and keeps the line. Instead, while Tenma grins like the hunt's finally worth his time, and the blonde tagalong gets instantly denied, because this is not a team sport, the old frontline bruiser wrecks his ego, saying Tenma stands in another league, which only makes the kid hotter-headed, insisting they've survived together this far, until the veteran snaps back that clingy teamwork is how people get Tenma killed. Then a higher voice cuts in, declaring Tenma uniquely special, beyond every peer, before the commander's warning about hatred-filled eyes and disaster beasts lands hard, and Tenma answers by locking onto 5 targets, ready to refill and erase them. Tenma barrels through the purple horrors, cracking the forests, swaggering peace, and Lotus Blast detonates 5 beasts, jacking his range like insane loot, because even then, that double-horned guardian is so tanky it humiliates him. While he vows nobody survives this forest gauntlet and reaches Iberia, the blonde hanger-on panics over the blast, then blames Tenma's skill, but the commander calmly wonders if some gift is secretly sabotaging his growth, with the green barrier revealing disaster beasts far nastier than everyone guessed. As mana detection fails, Tenma spots the barrier's limits and dead zones, then the color chart exposes why green means level 26 to 50, and Tenma quietly decides every one of them is just experience waiting. Tenma opens with absurd confidence, summoning Deathhound like prey, and the stat card flashes its B-rank menace, death smell, and tracking nonsense, because this kid is basically speedrunning experience while the wolf gets humiliated. Then he flat-out declares the whole disaster beast forest is his hunting ground. Meanwhile, the Guardians arrive late to the party, because of course they do, with Kei Chiriajima posturing as Azumi's protector, like anyone asked, and the backup team starts piling in, proving this crisis has way too many bodies, while the blue-haired girl explains the missing man's delay and bad timing, since the northern province has been dropping massive stellies all night, and apparently, even the special class saviors are still just human, which is a hilarious understatement. That speech is pure swagger, but special class is still special class, and Azumi keeps drilling the point home with terrifyingly calm superiority, because even disaster beasts come with rank, timing, and zero mercy. Then the whole barrier crackles as the beast finally barges in, while the smug backup crowd starts trash-talking first-class limits like clowns, but Tenma just answers with that cold, ridiculous confidence again, and outside, the barrier swells into a green shell over the forest, with Tenma and his beast already making that cursed scenery look normal, until a mana pillar punches upward, setting everyone's nerves on fire, and the veterans realize inside and outside are separated spaces. Annoyingly, mana detection hits 5 enemies, and Tenma already has their location mapped. He orders the wolf to wait and snack on any fleeing disaster beasts. Then Thunderbreaker ignites, because subtlety clearly died here too. 2 beasts bolt forward, and even they look scared of him. One keeps running, but Tenma's pressure makes the monster panic. Black Wall snaps shut, slamming lightning through the beast's smug body. The wounded thing gets launched, and Tenma refuses to let up. Clear Orb follows, drilling straight through collapsing armor and confidence. The core gets exposed, because even monsters hate getting speedran. Critical rate spikes, and Tenma turns the finish into humiliation. His critical rate crawls up again, and the monster looks increasingly doomed, because even this steel barrier fight is starting to feel one-sided, while Tenma keeps reading the battlefield like a problem he can solve, and the system even admits one enemy is left, restoring him further, so he decides a single hit should crack the barrier clean open. Then the black wall answer slams through the beast before it can breathe, and the damage is so ugly, he realizes the hidden attacker was behind the steel, because this was apparently a very different disaster beast than the last one, while the blonde witness and his battered partner brace for Tenma's limits, and the pessimism lands hard, since even they fear he may not save everyone. The blonde mentor downplays the monster threat, acting annoyingly calm, while the barrier's green glow screams that this lesson is already awful. Then he admits even he once feared green barrier disaster beasts, which is rich, because the kid beside him is already panicking at the level gap. So the mentor explains the gray zone beasts are a smarter, nastier problem, and casually insists any strong enemy still has loopholes if you plan properly. Except this barrier breed apparently learns, talks, and hits back like a person, which makes the black-haired observer realize these beasts aren't ordinary at all, and the commander finally labels Tenma a terrifying exception, not a liability, before the roaring beast snaps back, mocking his muttering with bloodthirsty confidence. The beast flashes its speed like a flex, already acting too proud for its own good, then it smears the kid as level 0 trash, which is hilarious coming from a monster on fire, but Tenma just grins, saying he's been waiting to ask something for ages, and the beast, because arrogance is apparently its whole personality, offers that final wish, only to get Tenma's eyes blazing as he casually asks whether it hurts. The monster laughs off the challenge, swearing humans can't paint it, then lunges with murderous swagger, except Tenma tears through the exchange with razor blue slashes, like speed suddenly became his territory, and the next impact sends the disaster beast reeling while Tenma keeps pressing, merciless and surgical. He even wonders if that hit landed. But the monster's mana swells higher instead, because now even its tentacles are faster, proving this nightmare just leveled up again. Tenma's strike lands, but the beast mocks his missing power, and that's adorable. He clocks the absurd speed, then wonders what level this monster really is. The beast calls him a bug, underestimating him with peak villain stupidity. Tenma answers with razor blue slashes, turning bragging into a very expensive mistake. The counterblows keep stacking, and suddenly the monster is the one flinching. Then Tenma drops the challenge, daring it to keep up if it can. He notices those tentacles are part of the body, so copying them is useless. Still, he keeps counting hits, casually guessing the 18th or 19th already. The beast snarls that it's all pointless, while Tenma's mana drops dangerously low, so he shifts fully into offense, because running dry is not exactly negotiable. Tenma keeps gambling on critical hits, because math is apparently his new religion, and the crystal answers with broken, stupidly stacked power while the beast gets clipped, so he cranks the tempo higher, knowing only non-stop pressure can force a crit, while the monster keeps taking those slashing barrages like an overconfident punching bag, except Tenma notices its body parts are all linked, making mimicry useless and hilarious. Then he mocks the beast's whining, even as his mana sinks toward the red zone, yet the monster still sneers at his recklessness, not realizing it's already losing, because Tenma's defense holds, and the beast's arrogance finally starts cracking. Right when a red-eyed watcher and the battlefield chaos signal someone bigger is arriving, then the crystal flips the verdict to guaranteed criticals, and Tenma ends the joke. Tenma keeps carving the beast apart, and its armor starts screaming. Then even the monster freezes, realizing this human is not normal. The dark-haired observer admits the growth is already beyond expectations, while Tenma strolls through the chaos, drowning in that ridiculous critical hit rush, bleeding through his stomach, yet feeling absolutely nothing, which is honestly insane, because the pain vanishes and every heartbeat turns into pure exhilaration. So he taunts the beast, asking if it can finally feel damage now, and the monster panics, whining about fake stats like a sore loser, since disaster beasts never used to think, let alone howl in terror. But Tenma's red eyes say it all. This fight is ending now. That monstrous hand slam means Tenma's limit just got embarrassed, while the so-called cleanup already looks pitifully overcooked, and even he admits the pain's back. But the rush is worse, because the barrier's gone transparent, making every leftover threat look extinct, so he calmly decides the monument dies next, like an insult to finish, then punches through with a warp ring strike that shatters expectations, leaving the battlefield cratered while he treats his own blood loss like nothing, and when he mutters about death, that sounds less like fear, more diagnosis. Meanwhile, the beast lunges for his face, pretending it still has dignity. But Tenma only smirks, because that ugly thing just became his next joke. And on top of that, Tenma's gaze hardens, because the pain's back, and the wolf's absurd stat jump makes this whole hunt look ridiculous, as he studies its growth and realizes the bigger monster keeps getting bigger, so naturally he starts looking forward to the next catastrophe like it owes him money. Then the barrier vanishes, and the entire northern side finally stops pretending, while the commanders stare upward, realizing Yuki just erased silver in minutes, and even the veteran observer admits this girl is frighteningly stronger now, but Tenma is already half broken, bleeding out while calling it a limit, so he orders Death to track mana traces and drag him to Iberia, and the Death Hound answers with a howl, because his joke just turned serious. The Calamity Beast's roar hits the woods, and Iberia finally notices, because even the blonde observer admits that feral sound feels familiar, while the wolf-like monster barrels in, only to meet brutal steel, and the dark-haired commander watches, realizing this thing keeps escalating. Since Tenma's Shikigami has already become the kind of disaster nobody laughs at, then that beast gets smashed back, prompting the noble idiot to panic, as he blurts that this is Juki's Shikigami, not some pet, but Tenma stands over the wreckage, calling it a level that won't rise, and the verdict lands hard. Combat power beyond peers, with skill carried in from elsewhere, while the wounded wolf sprawls out, and everyone wonders if Juki's okay. Iberia kneels over Juki, horrified, because that blood means disaster. The injured boy can barely breathe, yet still begs for a break. Instead, the commander calmly insists, he's alive, so stop crying. Iberia stares harder, realizing Juki's still breathing, which is somehow comforting. Then comes the blunt diagnosis. This wound needs treatment, not drama. So Iberia gets tasked with the Kodama bandage, and the panic spreads. Even he admits his combat power may never catch Juki's, annoyingly enough. But unlike brawlers, he has one job only he can do. That job is wind healing, bottom tier on paper, secretly clutch as hell. And now hell spam it forever for Juki, whether anyone likes it or not. C-rank healing looked pathetic, until Iberia lit the room green, and slapped life back into Juki, because panic is overrated, while the barrier above the residence spread like a purple curse. Outside, the defense line cracked spectacularly, proving brute force can be annoying, as Izumi Nento's presence turned the battlefield from chaos into humiliation, and Iberia, trembling but stubborn, chose treatment over heroic nonsense, even as a monster warrior bragged that humanity stood zero chance. Then Izumi calmly begged them to run, which is never comforting, because the beast immediately recognized his weird outfit and face, and suddenly the target was him, which is hilarious until it isn't. The barrier detonates upward, and the whole crisis finally shows its teeth, while Choha loses her nerve, screaming as her father gets swallowed by the blast. Then Izumi Nento arrives like judgment, coldly telling everyone they're late, and Tenma answers with Hitten, because subtlety clearly died minutes ago. The monster thinks it can still play hero, but Tenma claims the target, as even the beast hurls insults and the blue-haired observer panics over its power. Tenma keeps punching through the monster's bulk, red aura screaming louder than reason, until the disaster beast gets folded, with everyone staring at the carnage in disbelief, and the blue-haired fighter can only freeze, realizing this kid is absurd, while Izumi watches the aftermath and quietly measures the special-grade savior. So special-grade monsters weren't human after all. And that's adorable, because the crisis didn't end, it just got louder, with the real nightmare starting now, as Izumi Nento confirms the red barrier shift, standing beneath Prophecy Day 1, while the so-called battlefield target gets dragged deeper inside that crimson prison, and the Demon King level trash even boasts about watching the slaughter unfold, only for White Onus monstrous levels to skyrocket, while Tenma keeps stealing the spotlight, with Grudge King trying to play commander, though the mission is obviously him getting exposed, because 3 monsters together would have ruined the purple barrier's little disguise, and that red field keeps baiting stronger humans straight towards Sokushokuma, naturally, while the escort just smirks ahead, because the destination is where the real fun begins. Under the hood, the Demon Eyes Guide keeps smugly dragging them onward, since it can read coordinates and scenery like this is trivial homework, while Tenma lies there, absurdly awakened, already matching the target's exact spot. In Prophecy Day 1, 11:35 p.m., the whole barrier looks cursed on schedule, and the disaster beast finally admits Tenma's pain-sharing trick is real, which is hilarious, because his counterattack just crushed its head anyway. Choha rushes to slow him down, but he's past normal human reasoning now, insisting power exists for protection, not revenge, not even monster cleanup, and Tenma's shaking disbelief says it all, because that answer hits harder than any punch. while the red-eyed specter keeps watching in silence. Under the barrier's doomlight, Tenma's old grief finally comes due, and now the awakened brat talks like genocide is personal closure, while Choha stares, realizing his fury just mutated into conviction. Because the boy who said he would leave is still here, refusing to abandon anyone, even the disaster beast he hates, and that saintly nonsense nearly breaks him, until the red-eyed watcher keeps that creepy silence, while stage access and authority get bent, as Izuma's command and Reiji's smug theatrics collide in the chaos, with the crowd frozen, the receptionist rattled, and reality splitting, and Tenma's next move feels less heroic, more catastrophic, frankly. Tenma's eyes burn red, and the panic around him starts mutating, because the thing calling him out just kicked his fury awake. Now even the so-called Devil of Destruction looks painfully outclassed, while the bastard smug challenge only feeds Tenma's murderous focus, and the crowd watches the weak kid turn into a catastrophe. As Izuma's authority and Reiji's stage games grind against each other, with the masked, red-eyed watcher staying obnoxiously silent, of course, and then the monster gets slapped with pure, absurd pressure, while Tenma insists on protecting everyone, even that disaster beast, so the whole barrier crisis tilts towards something uglier than heroism. Blonde healer rushes in, thrilled Tenma's finally awake and alive, then celebrates his own recovery while Tenma wakes up, bewildered, because apparently 3 hours passed, and prophecy time is now mocking everyone. The blonde kid calmly says no disaster beasts arrived, which is suspiciously hopeful, but Tenma's nightmare lingers, with those beasts still planning something ugly. So the prophecy stamps his coma wake-up at 3-3, as if destiny loves drama, and Tenma refuses to lower his guard, towering there like trouble in human form, while allies promise backup soon, then head out to check Yosuke first, before the conversation swerves to the dog Shikigami, a so-called death hound, and Tenma smugly corrects the rookie nonsense, because naming things is now his hobby. Iberia snipes at the whole naming stunt, while Tenma stays stubbornly guarded. Then the battlefield shifts, and his answer to healing looks explosively ugly. Iberia pokes at his weak build, but Tenma shuts that nonsense down. Now the question is Yosuke, because reinforcements still haven't shown up. The warning is clear, nearby awakened were expected, and Iberia got them there. Tenma's eye hardens, because the delay feels wrong and disaster smells close. Deep in the forest, something evil pushes nearer, and nobody likes that omen. The pursuit team keeps cutting through trees, chasing Reiji's trail at full speed. Kinoshita Reiji still talks like a future legend, which is adorable. And then the pink-haired girl blurts panic, trying to stop him now. The forest turns into a blur, while the chase team gets nowhere near mercy, and the pink-haired lookout warns of something wrong, right as the front line tenses, because the shadows ahead have already spotted them, which is just wonderful timing. Then the cocky stage controller keeps lunging, only to get checked by disaster beast trouble, with Reiji still acting legendary beside that grotesque monster, as if arrogance pays rent. But the beast's fire-backed glare proves humans are fragile, apparently news to him, and its body keeps crashing through the counterattack, making that smug grin look dumber, until the blazing commander stands unmoved, letting the monster embarrass itself harder, while the giant's last strike digs in, and the whole forest feels one breath from collapse, because even the toughest thing here is starting to crack under Tenma's pressure. The monster is already flattened, and the first insult lands cleanly, while the pink-haired witness panics over a barrier that never existed here. Then the flame-headed brute smugly explains how far he dragged himself, but the girl is sweating hard, realizing this whole mess is impossible, because the silent cloaked commander orders mercy, and the monster's fun ends, so the ice erupts, shredding that flashy ego with delicious arrogance, as the beast gets buried under sharper and sharper punishment, until it finally begs, whining that even frozen death looked preferable, and the pink-haired girl watches, stunned, as the spell loosens, because for once, the terror is letting her go. The flame-headed brute smugly wonders if that woman hides some forbidden power, but the cloaked commander coolly denies it and frames this as a test. Then the pink-haired girl gets slammed into panic, because this battlefield is already over her head, and she ends up bent low, looking less like a fighter and more like a victim, while the brute sneers that death was never the point, just demonization, so her face warps into that eerie red-eyed state, ugly power finally answering, and the once defiant girl now kneels, ready to take orders without resistance. As the masked commander demands secrecy until Lord Linga finally descends, she obediently accepts, parroting the cover story about disaster beasts and survival, and the commander, satisfied, basically kicks her out to keep moving. The pink-haired girl freezes in the forest, and that alone tells you she's cooked. Panic slams her down hard, while the battlefield keeps moving without mercy. The flaming brute mocks her usefulness, treating recruitment like a punchline. His real agenda is demonization, and her face twists into it. That ugly corruption spreads fast, because Lord Lingus' plan runs on broken humans. The masked commander orders obedience, and she accepts like a finally beaten pawn. Then the scene cuts to Prophecy Day, where an iron golem gets deployed. Two warriors brag about the labor shortage, which is hilarious coming from them. Tenma's absence gets noted next, and of course he wandered off to the workshop. The old crafter explains the critical crystal, while everyone else plays catch-up. Broken critical crystal, and Tenma's absurd rate jumps to 4%, while the old crafter smirks, calling 3% luck after that monster. Then Tenma admits the hit sharpened him, like cheating reality itself, and the veteran breaks down flow state, that smug little miracle jargon. Tenma just accepts it, because apparently becoming the zone is normal. The old man even sounds shocked, realizing this kid crossed into it, since flow means total immersion, where time bends and stats overperform, so Tenma's puzzled little reaction sells how insane the awakening is, like a painter lost in art, or a student drowning in problem sets. And for awakened fighters, that focus turns raw numbers into terror. Deep in the training yard, the old mentor mocks flow state myths, baffled, then spells out the brutal requirements. And Tenma quietly realizes the bar's insane, because flow isn't talent alone. It's genius-level focus that crushes ordinary limits, and the veteran admits even the continent's elite barely ever touch it, while Tenma's own absurdly early entry lands like a miracle nobody ordered, leaving the old man practically squinting at him, asking if he's even listening. As 3 heavy mana signatures close in, each one screaming official backup, but Tenma reads that wave like a disaster beast, not a proper awakened, so he bolts to verify it, with the old guy already sprinting after him, and Tenma coolly confirms the barrier's clear, though his instincts still itch. Tenma bursts through the doorway, already clocking the tension in the air, as the blonde escort practically gushes that Itsuki is finally outside, but Tenma's eyes narrow, because that mana spike screams disaster beast, not rescue, while the blonde smugly insists there are no barriers here, so he's flexing again. Then the floor answers for him, and the iron golem gets shredded instantly, leaving the commander staring at the wreckage like his confidence just got audited, because the golem fell before reacting, and that is embarrassing even for him, and suddenly 3 nightmare-tier beasts are introduced like they own the place, while a prophecy timestamp hangs overhead, promising trouble at 2:01 a.m., and Tenma realizes these monsters look stronger than the barrier's whole lineup. The demon eye in front reeks of impossible magical waves, and that's bad news, because the masked commander calmly sends someone to capture the target, like this is routine, while the red-eyed thing warns them not to destroy the demon eye, which is adorable. Since the fire-headed brute and its monstrous ally are already turning the battlefield into a joke, then the blonde support and the black-haired boy realize the beasts are actually talking, and wow, so the black-haired kid and his companions refuse passage, even as the nightmare closes in, but the speed gap hits hard, and everyone watching starts losing their smug little confidence, because that single blur move leaves even the fierce-eyed kids stunned. Like, seriously. Yet the trio still pushes forward, swearing they won't let the shadow near the target. Then a blue strike answers the monster's charge, and the whole scene snaps tight. The battlefield feels frozen until that ice wall drops, and Tenma hates it, because the monster behind him is already lunging, proving panic is still a luxury. Then the brute gets smashed aside and the kid learns the chase has teeth, while the fire-headed clown casually warns them off. Like threat delivery makes him classy, but Tenma answers with red flame bullet, and suddenly the room gets very expensive. As Iberia shouts for cover and the blue cloak finally hardens into black wall, yet the blonde support still eats the shock, because heroism never looks graceful under pressure. Then Overmimesis catches the burning strike, and the monster's cleverness gets mocked. With analysis barely crawling at 1%, Tenma still looks annoyingly calm, which is why everyone finally realizes this kid's skill isn't normal, it's rank. The fire-faced brute mocks everyone, smugly treating the battlefield like a joke, then instantly panics as even he starts wondering if he overplayed it, because Tenma Itsuki is rising out of the smoke, looking disturbingly unreadable, and the demon-eyed clown realizes this level 0 human is a terrible assumption, so he summons Deathhound, expecting the usual cleanup, because villains do love overconfidence, but Tenma answers with a raging counterblow, turning that slick attack into a disaster, while the monster swears even 10 more Shikigami still wouldn't save anyone, and that's when Tenma quietly leans on Aiden, because apparently backup is optional. As the flame surge slams sideways, the target escapes the hit by inches, leaving the beast staring at its own Shikigami like, yeah, that thing is trouble. The flaming brute sneers at Tenma, already betting on easy slaughter, but the boy crouches low, letting fear masquerade as weakness for now. Then his analysis surges, and cowardice gets replaced by ruthless resolve, because that monster's big mouth just earned a very expensive mistake. As the beast panics, Tenma closes the gap with ridiculous speed, and even the demon-faced clown starts realizing this is wrong. That burst of speed lands like a brick through fragile confidence. While the monster finally understands Tenma's power is escalating, not fading, so it throws up fire, thinking weakness would save it. But nope, Tenma answers with a flame shield and a brutal counterstrike. Tenma's oops moment lands hard, and the whole night turns monstrous, because the flaming beast realizes too late it overplayed its smug little lecture, while Tenma keeps advancing like a bad omen with homework to finish, and the monster's confidence collapses the second it admits rank might be wrong. Across the barrier crisis, Prophecy Day chatter starts circling the hidden hand, with the oldest legends and artifact numbers being tossed around like bragging rights, but the white-haired mentor treats the chaos like familiar paperwork, not panic. Meanwhile, the old man's warning meets steel, and resistance gets instantly punished. Then ice detonates across the battlefield, locking the veteran's body in place, proving Tenma's skill just crossed from annoying to absolutely terrifying. The black-cloaked nightmare drops a death sentence, while ice charges the floor. Across the room, Iberia freezes up, realizing Dad's about to vanish. Behind him, the armored veteran looks ready to stop the stupidity. Then everyone spots it. That monster is Itsuki's Shikigami. The beast lunges again, but Tenma's ice answers like a guillotine. Even the closest watcher can only stare as shards explode everywhere. One brutal impact later, the battlefield is basically a frozen wreck, so the old guardian and masked commander start panicking over reinforcements. Iberia's smug confidence dies instantly, because approaching him is suicide. And just like that, rescuing Itsuki looks safer than winning. The guardian's warning lands hard, because this blue-cloaked rookie is already doomed. Then the truth hits. Itsuki was mangled long before he ever arrived, seriously. So the obvious plan dies fast, and rescuing him turns into suicide math. The blonde brat slams his resolve down, suddenly desperate to save his father. He bolts toward the stash, convinced the dragon gear is hidden under Dad's bed. But second thoughts creep in, because the battlefield keeps swallowing every brave idea. Meanwhile, the masked commander sneers at the cowardly retreat, then starts relocating the whole disaster. That strategy cranks the heat higher, as fiery reinforcements shove the pressure forward. Tenma answers with black ice wall, nursing his burned leg just enough to move, and the response gets uglier, because Roaring Wave detonates straight through the frozen line. Even torn apart, the monster keeps mocking Tenma's stubborn dodges. Then the firestorm swells as the brute spam casts Red Flame Bullet. But Tenma answers with both hands up, suddenly dead serious, because rapid fire is crashing in, and his options are evaporating fast. And now the barrage swarms him from every direction, forcing reckless movement. While his own muttered panic admits the bullets are simply too many, the burning trap tightens, and even he starts looking cornered for once. Yet the analysis meter climbs to 92%, annoyingly close. Then it rockets past 98, as he gets stripped bare by flame, and the whole nightmare flips into a blue flame girl's chilling smile. The battlefield reeks of overconfidence, and that flaming monster is grinning anyway. Then Tenma's counterstorm detonates, making the smug bastard's red bullets look pathetic. The blast keeps chewing through everything, while the analysis finally slams to completion, and even the monster starts blinking like it just met a nightmare it can't process, because Tenma's system cashes in, boosting black ice wall and every stat, so he stands there, team, acting like 4 levels of growth are nothing, which sends the fire-headed fool into panic. Since the attack barely touched him, then the icy lotus surges up, and the whole arena starts freezing over, while the monster realizes too late that its flaming bravado was pure comedy, and Tenma ends it by charging straight through, ready to finish the joke. The monster's smug confidence shatters, because Tenma's body is fully restored, and that calm little grin says he still planned to ditch this fight for Aiden. But the flames dragged up bad memories, so he changes his mind mid-sentence. Suddenly the feral glare lands, and now the beast is the one panicking. While the battlefield empties into wreckage, Tenma's power keeps humming through the dust. Every impact only proves the joke, as the monster calls him strong in disbelief, because even with gear blocking the blow, it knows that should have killed him. Then Tenma launches it backward, and the poor brute gets sent flying stupidly far, while the armored commander realizes everyone here is a monster, so retreat sounds wise, and the next strike tears down the last of the battlefield like paper. That red-eyed freak spots the kid who already ruined his confidence. Then the armored brute smugly claims help will make Tenma's job easier, except he immediately senses the real problem is the master behind it. Meanwhile, Iberia digs through a dusty room, desperate for anything useful, and there it is, dragon gear, because fate loves ridiculous timing. With the box opened, he grins like a man finding cheat codes, while the stats panel screams power bonuses, then a cruel 15-minute timer, so Tenma suits up fast, ready to smash the enemy and buy time, but the warning hits hard. Push dragon gear too long and consequences bite. Still, he charges anyway, promising to save Dad within 15 minutes. Deep in the forest, Tenma presses on, while the cloaked guide worries they're too relaxed, and the demon lord answers with that smug certainty, claiming only special class saviors matter, because ordinary humans clearly aren't worth his panic, even if his prey keeps advancing. Then the old man decides to bait the enemy, realizing bigger schemes are hiding nearby, while the masked authority scoffs that this isn't just a Tenma problem, obviously, and Tenma, hearing the trap closing, realizes he's racing a whole faction now, so the support team stays sharp, because persistent pests are apparently his favorite headache. As the battlefield blurs with motion, Tenma refuses to back off. The old man finally pins down the name game, still betting on Tenma alone, and then the dragon gear charge tears in, turning the demon lord's confidence into ash. The demon lord lunges in, screaming for his father. Then the gear upgrade drops first. Even he acts shocked, because a human brat should not scale this hard. Tenma keeps pressing the chase, while the fire monster gets dissected by analysis. The recovery miracle lands, and the arrogant burner finally looks genuinely rattled. Flames explode again, but Tenma answers with brutal fire of his own. The barrage keeps going, yet the speed and damage barely buy the monster hope. Black wall snaps up, and the overconfident attacker gets hard blocked. Embarrassing. His defense spikes absurdly, because of course the system hands him another cheat. The fire monster calls him reckless, but Tenma keeps walking through the roast. Now the flames just bounce off him, and that smugness dies on contact. Tenma unleashes Thunderbreaker, and the whole battlefield starts whining. Even the demon lord blinks, because his speed just got stupid again. Then Tenma dives in, peeling scales like the monster ever had dignity. The barrier tries to matter, but his charge tears straight through it. A crimson blast answers back, yet Tenma detonates right through the pressure. Blackwall laughs in the monster's face, locking down that fire attack. Now Tenma is cooking, and the arrogant beast starts melting mentally. The monster realizes escape is the only classy option left, but even its desperate cries can't save the White Ogre Grudge King. Inside the collapsing stage, even the demon lord starts begging for mercy, because Tenma keeps tearing through the flames like the world owes him, and that so-called invincible monster is now whining about being killed by humans. While Tenma's expression turns cold enough to make the fire look stupid, the arrogant beast finally realizes its level readout was a cruel joke. As purple power swallows the arena and one critical hit is announced, then the demon lord's face drains into pure sweat-soaked panic. Priceless. Before Tenma's rush leaves it babbling that this nightmare is a demon, and the final impact buries that confidence under one very loud explosion. In the smoking forest, Tenma stands over the ruined monster, unnervingly calm. Then that dead-eyed focus snaps back, like pain just fed the engine, because he wants the brute to suffer more, and that's honestly sick, while his stats spike hard enough to make the so-called critical hit look accidental, and the numbers keep climbing past reason, as flow state turns criminally unfair. The green karma orb is his reward, apparently, from the disaster beast he wrecked. Then it rockets toward the forest, and Tenma starts suspecting Jusuke-san is involved. Even the battlefield can't keep up, as he wonders whether Aiden is ready, before one brutal impact leaves the monster buried under smoke, sparks, and humiliation. Even his dragon gear strike bounces off that armor. Seriously, so he refuses to quit, and just keeps swinging harder, nastier. While the beast talks trash about the gap, and that confidence is embarrassing, but the old support guy barges in, screaming at everyone to remove the gear, because he'd rather save his family than preserve their stupid pride, and Tenma instantly thinks of Aiden, proving this mess has backup plans. Right as the Elder's ice hold clashes with the monster's smug tantrum, then Tenma cuts through the hesitation, declaring he is done playing around, and the masked threat answers with a new wave of impossible blue power. Deep in the forest, the wolfish brute mocks the wounded man, and instantly regrets it. Ice erupts around the battlefield, because apparently the monster picked the wrong flex. 315 hits, prophecy or not, and Tenma's stats keep climbing like a lunatic. The black beast lunges harder, only to get buried under another humiliating counter, while the smug trash talk about death sounds ridiculous beside Tenma's shredded calm. Then the level spikes again, because this ridiculous nightmare keeps feeding on itself. Even the beast starts whining about Aiden and the disaster beast. Convenient timing as usual. Tenma's eye hardens, and that look says he's done entertaining anybody's delusions. So the battlefield tears open, and everyone realizes something far worse just answered. That violent magic wave hits like the battlefield just swallowed a storm, and Tenma stands there, shirtless and electrified, because apparently waiting for Jusuke was never an option. While the lightning-fueled strike lands with enough force to make the beast look embarrassed, then its regeneration gets exposed as it blocks head and neck. Not exactly genius behavior, until the monster's weak point starts bleeding out under Tenma's red-bladed pressure, and the smug realization hits him. This ugly disaster beast heals, but not fast enough, so the curse logic finally clicks, forcing the awakened crowd to panic and admire, as Tenma refuses to yield and keeps pushing through the absurd karma spiral, leaving the monster broken, the bossy observers tense, and the whole arena shaking. Red-black power floods the arena, and Tenma swears he can handle it, then he carves into the beast, while its smug body starts looking expensive, because one clean slash already teaches it humility, and he keeps pressing in. The regen delay becomes the whole joke, exposing how badly it underestimates him, so the weak point opens wide, and the monster bleeds like a bad investment. Tenma's eyes go feral with focus. As the crowd realizes this is no accident, the disaster beast gets dragged into chaos. While everyone else watches helplessly, even Tenma admits this is brutal, though he still cannot stop advancing, and nearby, the support crew scrambles to reunite fast before the boss notices. That ice-clad disaster beast looks troublesome, and Tenma already hates the opening, but the old support man keeps pressing it, while the monster loses its confidence. Then the masked commander's warning lands, and even the desperate plea sounds embarrassing, because from this distance, the ice control slips, and control becomes somebody else's problem. The beast spots the demon dragon armor, and suddenly its smugness feels expensive. Its boast about monstrous life force lands hard. Since the thing was basically bragging through pain, then the gear itself becomes the curse, swallowing the user's mind piece by piece, until the monster gets launched screaming. And Tenma's answer is pure feral escalation. Finally, the dragon takes over completely, and the beast realizes it picked the wrong target.